Chapter 682. After embedding the most complete Laos crystal into a piece of rock, the time rune array was activated. Within the time rune array, the flow of time was 1,000 times slower than outside. At this moment, if one was outside the range of the time rune array, they would realize that Yang Tian's movements were extremely slow. If he blinked, it would take him a few minutes to complete the process. Within the time rune array, Yang Tian did not feel that whether he was thinking or doing other things, everything was normal. He did not feel any change in the flow of time at all. When Yang Tian looked outside the time rune array, he saw that a stone had fallen from the cave. It landed on the ground in a flash, and Yang Tian did not see the trajectory of the stone. This was the magic of the time rune array. The time rune array was activated. Next, Yang Tian had other things to do. He took out another piece of rock from his storage bracelet. A strange program controlled his body and began to draw the teleportation rune array. It was not too late to mend the pen after the sheep had been lost. At this moment, Bai Yu and the others outside had already finished setting up the flame array. Although this array was powerful, the amount of energy it consumed was also terrifying. The 100 territories placed 4 golden life crystals on the 4 stone pillars in the 4 directions. Rise! After placing the life crystals, Bai Yu flew into the air and shouted. Rune energy emanated from his hands. This was the rune energy to activate the array. In an instant, the 4 stone pillars with the life crystals lit up with red light, shooting 4 thick pillars of light into the sky. The 4 pillars of light gathered thousands of meters in the air, forming a huge red ball of light. This red ball of light had a diameter of several hundred meters. Once it was formed, it shot red pillars of light toward the other stone pillars below. Soon, a large red net shaped like a round birdcage was formed. The area covered by the net of light was just enough to cover the entire basin. The flame array had not fully unleashed its power, but the cultivators standing on the surrounding mountain peaks could already feel the waves of heat. They could not help but quickly retreat down the mountain. The upper echelons of the family, who came by flying ship, had already boarded the ship and flown into the air before the array was activated. Before they could retreat to the foot of the mountain, the sparse plants at the bottom of the mountain could not withstand the heat and began to wither. Even when they were several kilometers away from the edge of the nest of 10,000 beasts, they could still feel the heat waves coming from the front. Dozens of stewards had already flown into the air and formed a circle in the air. All the cultivators' movements were under their surveillance. The high temperature caused by the flame array was like a small star placed in the nest of 10,000 beasts surrounded by mountains. Hueha Baixing, Hueha Miao Miao, Hueha Chan Chan, and the 3 elders stood at the cabin door of the spaceship. They frowned as they looked at the sea of red in front of them. Even if they were 10,000 meters underground, they wouldn't be able to resist such a high temperature, right? Before the grand array was activated, Yang Tian could still escape. But after the grand array was activated, there was absolutely no way to break free of the grand array's shackles. Once the flame array was activated, the low-level cultivators who were enveloped by it would not be able to escape. In less than 3 minutes, the trees several kilometers away from the 10,000 beast lair were all dried up and burned. The high temperature kept spreading in all directions at an extremely fast speed, and the area grew larger. Some people could not help but think that if the flame array was activated for a long time, perhaps it would affect the climate of the entire area for hundreds of days. At this moment, how was Yang Tian's situation? In less than 5 minutes after Yang Tian activated the time talisman formation, the flame array outside was activated. He sensed that the temperature around him began to rise slowly. Solids conducted energy faster than air. When the flame array was activated and the cultivators had not retreated from the mountain, the temperature around Yang Tian had risen to hundreds of degrees Celsius. At this moment, Yang Tian, who was inside the time talisman formation, had just noticed the change in temperature around him. Yang Tian estimated that he could withstand more than 3,000 degrees Celsius using his mental power. Moreover, the higher the temperature, the shorter the time he could withstand it. This was because his mental power was consumed very quickly. Even at 3,000 degrees Celsius, he could only withstand it for slightly more than 10 minutes. Compared to Yang Tian, Little Azure Dragon was able to withstand higher temperatures and could last longer as well. This was because the quality of its body was higher than Yang Tian's. The flame array consumed too much energy, so it would not take more than 10 minutes from its activation to its end. The flow of time inside the flame array was also accelerated by 10 times compared to the flow of time outside, which was equivalent to speeding up the death of the people trapped inside. This was the opposite of slowing down the flow of time. If the flow of time was accelerated, the people trapped in the array would be eroded by more than 10 times the temperature within a unit of time. If the flow of time inside the flame array and Yang Tian's time talisman formation cancelled each other out, this meant that the flow of time around Yang Tian was about 100 times slower than the flow of time outside the flame array. Yang Tian could withstand more than 10 minutes under 3,000 degrees Celsius, but it would take him about 3 minutes to reach 3,000 degrees Celsius where he was. 3 minutes multiplied by 100 would be 300 minutes, which was about 5 hours. 5 hours was enough for Yang Tian to complete the teleportation talisman formation. In Yang Tian's vision, the outside world quickly turned red. Due to the high temperature, the entire cave began to change shape. The talisman formation that hid the presence was exposed outside of the time talisman formation. Due to the change in the cave's shape, the placement of the limestone changed very quickly. The limestone that formed the formation could not be moved. Once it was moved, the formation would disappear. The flame array had only been active for about 3 minutes when Yang Tian's presence appeared and was sensed by several dozen officials. Ha ha ha! Bai Yu could not help but laugh loudly. Ku Man's lips curled as he sneered. He really is down there. Let's see how long he can last under the flame array. In the eyes of these officials, Yang Tian was dead for sure. Even they would not be able to escape if they were trapped in a formation like this, let alone Yang Tian, who was only at returnance. Another 2 minutes passed in the outside world. The 4 golden life crystals that powered the formation had shrunk in size by half. It seemed that the formation could last for another 4 to 5 minutes. 2 minutes had passed in the outside world, but to Yang Tian it was more than 2 hours. At this moment, Yang Tian finally felt like he could not hold on any longer. More importantly, the cave's shape was changing faster and faster. It began to melt like wax, and it was about to affect the 20 limestone that formed the time talisman formation. Yang Tian did not have much time left. Why had Yang Tian not completed the teleportation talisman formation? Because the first time he inscribed the formation, the teleportation had failed. To Yang Tian, time had suddenly become tight. Chapter 683. The flame formation had a strong spatial restriction. Normal teleportation talismans could not break through this spatial restriction. The strange program could only design a new teleportation talisman array according to the energy fluctuations of the flame formation's runes. This took another half an hour. If the strange program's second teleportation talisman array failed, Yang Tian would really die. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer Yang Tian became. Outside, 7 minutes had passed before the strange program finally finished carving the runes. Yang Tian quickly placed the bluestone in place. Every minute he stayed here was more dangerous. Just as he finished setting up the teleportation talisman array, the time talisman array went out. The cave had turned from a circular shape to a flat shape. Yang Tian had no choice but to desperately use his mental power to resist the temperature that had suddenly increased by many times outside. In theory, Yang Tian could last for 5 hours after the flame formation was activated. However, this was not the case in reality. 3 hours was already good enough. When the time talisman array disappeared, the time he could last was even shorter. When he placed a louse crystal in the recess that formed the teleportation talisman array, the teleportation talisman array finally lit up. However, it only lit up for less than 2 seconds before it went out. Yang Tian, I'm sorry. One louse crystal can only last for a little more than a second. Unless you can continuously add 2 louse crystals, you can only complete one teleportation. At this moment, the strange program spoke in Yang Tian's mind. Just as it finished speaking, the strange program said again, I have less than a minute left. What should I do? Why is it like this? Yang Tian gritted his teeth and asked the strange program in his mind. The strange program said, there's no other way. Because the formation outside didn't last long, the information I obtained was not comprehensive enough. It's already good that this teleportation talisman array can light up. According to the reaction during the teleportation, to complete one teleportation, you need twice the energy of the louse crystal. It's too late to change the talisman array now. At this moment, Yang Tian glanced at the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon's expression was very nervous. It did not understand why the teleportation talisman array stopped lighting up. Yang Tian was now faced with a choice. Between him and the little blue dragon, only one of them could leave this place alive. Those who stayed here needed to quickly add lice crystals to the teleportation formation. Yang Tian would never let the little blue dragon stay. In that case, he could only stay. Yang Tian removed the bug brain pendant from his neck and hung it around the little blue dragon's neck. Then, he placed his hand on his storage bracelet. He was about to take off his storage bracelet and give it to the little blue dragon. In the future, if the little blue dragon had the chance to meet Qin Fei, he could give this item to her. There was also a precious seed of the world tree inside. Just as Yang Tian was thinking this, his heart moved, and he took out a red crystal from his storage bracelet. This was obtained from the automaton race. Perhaps he would not die. Yang Tian chuckled and took off the 2 storage bracelets on his left and right hands, one black and one white, and put them around the little blue dragon's neck. Xiao Long, after you go out, go find Chan Chan. She will take care of you in the future. With that, Yang Tian grabbed the little blue dragon and put a piece of lice crystal into the energy slot of the teleportation formation. The teleportation formation next to him lit up again. The little blue dragon had realized something at this time. Yang Tian was making arrangements for his death. How could it give up on Yang Tian? It began to struggle. But at this time, the little blue dragon had not recovered its strength and its body was still very weak. How could it break free from Yang Tian's 5 fingers? Seeing that the little blue dragon was not obedient, Yang Tian tightened his grip and grabbed the little blue dragon until its eyes rolled back. The little blue dragon unconsciously bit the back of Yang Tian's hand. It was very painful and blood flowed out. Yang Tian clenched his teeth and let go of his hand, smashing the little blue dragon into the teleportation formation. At this time, a piece of lice crystal was about to disappear. Yang Tian quickly picked up another piece of lice crystal and put it into the groove on the blue stone again. The little blue dragon was dizzy from being smashed by Yang Tian. Before it could react, it disappeared into the teleportation formation. As soon as the little blue dragon disappeared, the deformation of the cave caused the blue stone that formed the teleportation formation to shift, and the teleportation formation was destroyed. Under the extremely high temperature, Yang Tian was almost unable to hold on. He used his remaining mental power to wrap all of his consciousness and entered the red crystal that he found from the machines. Without the protection of his mental power, Yang Tian's body instantly turned into black slag under the high temperature. After Yang Tian's consciousness entered the crystal world, it arrived at the teleportation formation in the red crystal. Although the red crystal was resistant to high temperatures, it could not withstand the high temperature of the flame formation. The surface layer began to melt rapidly. Yang Tian, who was inside the red crystal, could clearly see the crystal world shrinking bit by bit. Without a body, Yang Tian could not do anything. If it were not for the mental power wrapping around Yang Tian's consciousness, his consciousness would have dissipated quickly as soon as it left his body. The crystal world was disappearing, but Yang Tian did not know how to activate the teleportation formation. He could not help but feel hopeless. Even so, Yang Tian did not regret it at all. If he could do it again, he would still send the little blue dragon away first. Fortunately, the machines were generally intelligent devices. The crystal's control program detected that the crystal had been severely damaged and automatically activated the teleportation. In Yang Tian's vision, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. When he reappeared, Yang Tian was already in a bright room. The room seemed to be made of silvery white metal. It was square in shape, about 10 meters in length and width, and 3 meters in height. There was also a door in the room, and there was a circular teleportation formation under his feet. Before the teleportation, Yang Tian was originally a ball of consciousness. After arriving here, Yang Tian suddenly realized that he had flesh and blood. This kind of situation made him extremely surprised. Pure consciousness had a very serious sense of emptiness and danger. Now, both of these feelings were gone. In his surprise, Yang Tian closed his eyes and wanted to observe the energy world in his body. The miraculous thing was that the origin realm in his body was also there. So much so that Yang Tian even drew out a trace of origin power from the origin realm. Who is it? As soon as this trace of origin power was released, the light in the bright room dimmed and turned blue. Then, the door opened and a woman appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. She said coldly, "Mansi." Seeing this woman, Yang Tian called out in surprise. The woman who appeared in front of Yang Tian was the machine race woman, Mansi, whom Yang Tian had seen in the crystal that day. "You are Yang Tian?" Mansi still remembered Yang Tian. After being stunned for a moment, she asked. Yang Tian smiled and nodded. "How did you come to this world?" Mansi smiled and said, "This is the virtual world of our machine race." "Could it be?" Yang Tian shrugged helplessly and said, "You guessed right. My physical body was destroyed. Fortunately, I had the crystal you left behind, so I could survive in this way." Mansi smiled and said, "Good. Welcome to our machine race." After the 4 life crystals were used up, the flame formation was finally extinguished. Meanwhile, the radiant disaster Baixing and the others also received bad news, which was that Yang Tian was dead. Yang Tian's aura appeared for a moment and then disappeared quickly. This meant that Yang Tian had been hiding underground all this time and had concealed his aura. It was impossible for Yang Tian to escape to the seashore. Chapter 684. After an unknown amount of time, the little blue dragon finally woke up. It jumped up from the ground and shook its head vigorously. The 2 storage bracelets on its neck clanged against each other. In order to let the little blue dragon teleport away smoothly, Yang Tian had smashed the bracelets a little too hard. The little blue dragon had already been teleported to a rectangular stone room. Under its feet was a teleportation array formed by countless runes. This was the place that Yang Tian had secretly opened up in the Hui clan's underground city. Other than Yang Tian, the little blue dragon, and the strange program, no one else knew that such a place existed in the underground city. There were runes on the walls of this stone room that could hide one's aura. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon could stay here for a long time without any problems. Even if an elite like the Hui Baixing came here, they wouldn't be able to sense the existence of Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. With a burst of blue light, a transparent little blue dragon appeared in the air. It was naturally created by the strange program. The little blue dragon quickly woke up. Thinking about the situation just now, it couldn't help but feel sad. Yang Tian wasn't dead yet. The little blue dragon could faintly sense that it was connected to Yang Tian's mind. Naturally, it knew about Yang Tian's situation. What made the little blue dragon sad was that Yang Tian's physical body had been destroyed. Only his consciousness was left. This situation was similar to when the little blue dragon's physical body had been destroyed by space, and only the dragon orb was left behind. Yang Tian isn't dead, is he? The little blue dragon that the strange program had created sped through the air a few times. It created a sound like energy and transmitted it to the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon nodded. After asking and receiving the little blue dragon's answer, the strange program returned to the bug brain pendant. It was difficult to communicate with the little blue dragon. As long as Yang Tian was not completely dead, the strange program only believed in Yang Tian. If Yang Tian was not dead, it would stay in the bug brain pendant with peace of mind. If Yang Tian was really dead, it would have to find another master. Other than not having a physical body, the strange program was also a type of life form. Naturally, he needed to communicate with other living beings and realize his own value. He did not want to be trapped in the bug brain pendant forever. After the strange program disappeared, the little blue dragon twitched its nose. Only then did it realize that there was still Yang Tian's blood in its mouth. When it tried to break free from Yang Tian's grasp, it instinctively bit Yang Tian. At that critical moment, the little blue dragon didn't want to leave Yang Tian and live alone. The man and the dragon had long shared life and death together. The blood in his mouth made the little blue dragon excited. If Yang Tian's consciousness returned, he could rely on the blood to be reborn. As soon as the little blue dragon thought of this, it suddenly became worried. This was because it suddenly remembered that the cultivators of this world could not be revived after their bodies were destroyed. When the beast horde attacked the Hui clan, many Returnance cultivators did not come back to life after being killed by the mutated beast. In the previous universe, the situation was different. As long as one cultivated to the eternal star realm, their bodies could be reformed. Although it was worried, the little blue dragon still used its mental energy to collect Yang Tian's blood in its mouth. It formed a finger-sized blood bead. Yang Tian had obviously built this secret room for something. After collecting Yang Tian's blood, the little blue dragon turned around and came to the wall. It flew a meter high and slapped a brick with its claw. The brick on the wall stretched out silently, and an empty space appeared. This space was filled with runes. This space was used to preserve freshness. It mainly used time runes. If a piece of fresh meat was placed inside, it could ensure that it would not rot for several years. The little blue dragon thought about it and placed the blood bead into the space before pushing it back with its claw. Afterwards, it lay down under the brick and closed its eyes. It began to adjust the chaotic energy in its body. Although it knew that Yang Tian was not dead, the little blue dragon could not sense Yang Tian's exact location because he did not have a body. As such, it could only wait. If Yang Tian did not return for a day, it would wait for a day. If he did not return for a year, it would wait for a year. It would wait forever. The place where Yang Tian appeared was Monsi's residence. Monsi was not married, so she was the only person living in the entire house. If she did not have a mission, she would spend most of her time in the house. Although this virtual world was very lifelike, it was still different from the real human world. In this world, there was no disease, no hunger, no crime. If someone violated the law and infringed on the rights of others, they would be detected and eliminated in advance by the server that controlled this world. All of the programmed life was under the control of the server. Monsi told Yang Tian a lot about the beauty of this world. It was very beautiful, but for Yang Tian it was very boring. Monsi told Yang Tian that many humans who were about to die in the outside world used a huge amount of wealth to exchange with the Machinery clan and transmitted their consciousness to this world. Here, these humans could enter a world unit built for them by the server. In this independent world unit, they could live the life they wanted. For example, a cultivator who wanted to cultivate to become a god could perfectly realize this wish in this world unit. This made Yang Tian sigh in his heart. Sometimes it was really difficult to distinguish between the real and the fake. Join the machinery clan? Regarding Monsi's suggestion, Yang Tian shook his head and refused. Without a physical body, living in this fake world while being constantly monitored, Yang Tian did not like this kind of life. In fact, as long as one could live in the real world with a goal, no one would want to become a member of the machinery clan. Seeing that she could not persuade Yang Tian, Monsi said, "All right. What can I do for you? If I can help you, I will definitely help you." "Thank you." Yang Tian smiled and thanked her. Monsi continued, "But let me remind you, after I take you out of this world, you can no longer enter. Actually, the higher-ups already know that you are here. As long as you abide by the rules of this world, they will not make things difficult for you. But after you leave, you will be recorded in the defectors database. The next time you die, if you appear in this world again, you will be immediately eliminated." Yang Tian said, "I have already thought about it. I must leave this place. I hope you can take me to the Hui clan's ancestral land." Monsi thought for a moment and nodded. "This should be able to help you. If a member of the machinery clan wanted to go out and not be sent out to carry out a mission, they would need to go through an examination. Because they were taking an outsider away, they could not reveal the secrets of the machinery clan. Monsi drove the robot out of the machinery clan's territory through teleportation. Within a humanoid robot warrior, Yang Tian and Monsi were in the same crystal. When the robot warrior was activated, Yang Tian discovered that this crystal was not what he had imagined. The crystal space suddenly became transparent, and the situation of the outside world was clearly displayed in Yang Tian's eyes. Monsi, who was in charge of controlling the robot warrior, had her eyes closed. Her body was wrapped in a faint green light. This green light should be a communication device between the robot warrior and Monsi. Chapter 685. Sometimes, an unintentional discovery could save one's life. If he had not discovered the red crystal of the mechanical race, Yang Tian would not have survived the previous situation. Monsi's robot warrior flew very quickly. It only took her slightly more than 3 hours to fly to a place a few kilometers away from the Hui clan's territory. In fact, the mechanical race's territory was very far away from the Hui clan. If it had not been for the teleportation formation, Monsi would not have been able to send Yang Tian there so quickly. After the underground city was built, the Hui clan's original territory was already in ruins. No one lived there and it looked very desolate. Even so, according to the rules, Monsi's robot warrior could only land a few kilometers away from the Hui clan's territory. "Yang Tian, we're here." After the robot warrior landed on the ground, the green light on Monsi's body disappeared. She turned around and spoke to Yang Tian. The situation outside was very clear. Yang Tian could already sense the little blue dragon's presence here. He could not help but say to Monsi happily, "Thank you so much." Monsi said, "You're welcome. I just want to know how you're going to survive if your physical body is destroyed." Monsi did not ask before. She knew that this was Yang Tian's secret. However, she could not help but ask when she saw how happy Yang Tian was now. Yang Tian said, "Because my physical body cells are not completely destroyed. Even if they're destroyed, there's still Xiaolong." Monsi still could not understand Yang Tian's answer. She did not ask any more. She smiled and said, "Then I wish you good luck. I hope that the next time I see you, you'll be the same as before." Yang Tian smiled and nodded. Yang Tian used his mind power to wrap around his consciousness and left the red crystal. The sense of emptiness and danger from before appeared again. Yang Tian's consciousness and mind power could not be seen by the naked eye. After Yang Tian's consciousness left the red crystal, Monsi could not find Yang Tian. The robot warrior's energy detection system could not detect Yang Tian's presence either. Good luck. After saying this again, Mansi drove the robot warrior away. After leaving the red crystal within the robot warrior, Yang Tian flew to the sky above the underground city. At this moment, the mental power that enveloped his consciousness became thinner. The rate at which mental power was extracted from the origin realm could not be compared to the rate at which it was consumed. There were countless rune energies in the dungeon. With Yang Tian's current mental strength, he was unable to penetrate the rune energy layer. Now it was up to the little blue dragon. If the little blue dragon did not appear for a long time, Yang Tian would be done for. By doing this, Yang Tian was basically handing his life over to the little blue dragon. A few minutes later, just as Yang Tian was about to give up, a green shadow flashed and his consciousness was sucked into the little blue dragon's mouth. There was a drop of red blood in the little blue dragon's mouth. It was Yang Tian's blood. This blood bead was like a home to Yang Tian's consciousness. His consciousness did not hesitate and immediately entered this blood bead. With this blood bead in his mouth, the little blue dragon immediately went through the secret passage and returned to the stone room from before. After coming to this world, the cells in Yang Tian's body had undergone changes. He originally thought that as long as the cells in his body were still alive, they would be able to divide and reproduce under the control of his consciousness until they grew into a new body. However, the reality was that after Yang Tian's consciousness entered the blood bead, he began to fall into a deep sleep. The little blue dragon that brought Yang Tian back to the secret room could not wake Yang Tian up no matter what. Fortunately, Yang Tian's vital signs were still there and showed no signs of weakening. This result was good. The little blue dragon was very smart. Looking at Yang Tian's blood bead, he immediately understood that this was because Yang Tian's body cells lacked energy. If the situation was reversed between Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, Yang Tian would have many ways to revive the little blue dragon. After all, Yang Tian was a human and had the help of the strange program. However, for the little blue dragon, there were not many methods. After thinking for a while, the little blue dragon took another drop of blood and fused it into Yang Tian's blood bead before his body had fully recovered. To the little blue dragon, this was just an experiment. He did not dare to guarantee that this would work on Yang Tian. The sleeping Yang Tian could not communicate with the little blue dragon at this time. If this method did not work, the little blue dragon would have to think of another way. If it really did not work, he would have to find Hui Yi-chan-chan. That girl was still trustworthy. After the little blue dragon's blood essence fused into Yang Tian's blood bead, the blood bead quickly grew bigger and finally became the size of a fist. Its color was even brighter. After losing a drop of blood essence, the little blue dragon's expression became a little dispirited. However, after seeing the blood bead grow bigger and Yang Tian's vital signs become stronger, it was very happy. At least, this method had a certain effect on Yang Tian. The fist-sized red blood bead formed a hard shell on the outside. The little blue dragon controlled it and slowly landed on the ground. At this time, the little blue dragon withdrew his spiritual power bit by bit. After discovering that the blood bead did not change without the protection of his spiritual power, the little blue dragon could not help but sigh in relief. Losing a drop of blood essence was equivalent to losing a lot of energy for the little blue dragon. It lay beside the blood bead and quickly closed its eyes. Unknowingly, it fell asleep. After an unknown amount of time, the blood bead's color began to change and Yang Tian's vital signs began to weaken. This was a bad sign. Sensing the abnormality in the blood bead, the strange program appeared again and woke the little blue dragon up. It told the little blue dragon that 3 days had passed. Seeing that the blood bead was changing and Yang Tian's vital signs were weakening, the little blue dragon had no choice but to use another drop of blood essence. This drop of blood essence doubled the size of the blood bead again. Yang Tian's vital signs were strengthened again. The results of these two attempts made the little azure dragon realize that it had to transfer a drop of blood essence to Yang Tian every once in a while if there was no other way. However, if it did not replenish it, it would not last long. What should it do? The little blue dragon thought about it and had no choice but to go out and look for Hui Yi Chan Chan for help. At least, Hui Yi Chan Chan could provide the little blue dragon with life crystals so that it could be recharged. However, the results made the little blue dragon depressed. This was because it heard people saying that Hui Yi Chan Chan had gone to the cosmic temple and would not be back in a short period of time. The 100 territories of the cosmic temple were very confident that they could recruit Hui Yi Chan Chan to the cosmic temple. However, it did not expect Hui Yi Chan Chan to hate it for setting up the flame formation and killing Yang Tian. Therefore, she chose the cosmic temple in the end. Since the most trusted person was not there, the little blue dragon could not look for anyone else for help. As for Karst, the little blue dragon knew that he was just a nobody and would not be able to help. In order to keep Yang Tian alive, it had to provide Yang Tian with its blood essence. During this process, it had to replenish a large amount of energy. The Hui family's storeroom became the little blue dragon's target. However, the storeroom was heavily guarded and there were many rune formations. It was impossible for the little blue dragon to enter successfully. This required the help of the strange program. Looking at the door of the storeroom, the little blue dragon rolled its eyes and immediately returned to the secret room. Chapter 686. In the secret room, a brick protruded out, revealing a square-foot entrance. The little blue dragon crawled in through this entrance. After landing on the ground, the little blue dragon used its claws to touch the bug brain pendant twice. The strange program appeared. Gigi, the little blue dragon, used its 2 claws to gesture while calling out. The strange program did not understand the little blue dragon's language, but it knew that the little blue dragon was in a hurry. It asked, "Do you want me to help you?" The little blue dragon nodded. The strange program did not need to guess to know that the little blue dragon wanted it to decipher the rune array, because this was the only thing it could help in this aspect. Yang Tian did not expect that the little blue dragon and the strange program would need to communicate one day. If he had known, he would have thought of a way for the little blue dragon and the strange program to communicate smoothly. "All right, bring me there," the strange program said. The little blue dragon used its claws to hold the bug brain pendant and put it on its neck. Because the string was too long, it wrapped it around its neck a few times. Through the small entrance, the little blue dragon exited the secret room once again. The location of the warehouse had to be hidden, so it was naturally located at the lowest level of the underground city. There were very few people living here, and very few people walked around. There were only a dozen guards patrolling back and forth. At the entrance of the warehouse, there were also 8 black-armored guards. The little blue dragon was small and fast, so it was not easy to be discovered. Soon, the little blue dragon arrived near the warehouse again. The layers of rune arrays that enveloped the warehouse were not designed by the strange program. They were added after the underground city was built by the runes division. This kind of rune array had many layers. The outer layers acted as a barrier to prevent small animals from accidentally breaking in. The inner layers acted as both a barrier and an alarm. If a bug broke through the first few layers of rune arrays, it would immediately trigger the alarm. A large number of guards would immediately rush over after receiving the alarm. The little blue dragon was hiding in a big tree outside the warehouse. The bug brain pendant on its neck was emitting a faint blue light. The little blue dragon had been here once before. No one had discovered it then, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be discovered now. The bug brain pendant was emitting a faint rune energy, completely concealing the little blue dragon's aura. The strange program knew that the little blue dragon wanted to enter the warehouse. If Yang Tian was here, the strange program would be able to control Yang Tian's body. With Yang Tian's cooperation, the strange program would be able to use both hands to create rune arrays to investigate and decipher the rune array system that enveloped the warehouse. For a strange program, this was a way to save effort. Now that Yang Tian wasn't around, it could only do it on its own. It had no choice but to consume a large amount of energy. When a group of patrolling guards passed by not far away, the bug brain pendant projected a thin blue light that touched the rune array that enveloped the warehouse. At this moment, one could clearly see that the blue light was blocked by a formless energy. The little blue dragon opened its eyes wide and was ready to move at any time. The blue light wasn't bright and could only be seen when one got closer. After being blocked by a formless energy for a few seconds, it suddenly broke through and advanced a few meters. This meant that the first layer of rune arrays had been cracked by the strange program. Without Yang Tian's help, the strange program consumed a lot of energy, but the cracking speed was very fast. In less than 3 minutes, this thin ray of light was projected onto the wall of the warehouse. Immediately, this ray of blue light became thicker and more transparent. When it reached a diameter of more than 10 centimeters and formed a straight passage, the little blue dragon moved. It turned into a green shadow and rushed in through the open passage. When the little blue dragon broke through more than 10 rune arrays and pressed its body against the wall of the warehouse, the rune array entrances that had been opened were all closed. To the strange program, the rune arrays designed by the Hui family's rune division weren't that brilliant. If it were to design it, even if it was its own work, it wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly. The little blue dragon climbed up the wall of the warehouse and stuck to the roof, trying to find an entrance. After a long time, it realized that this warehouse made of limestone was actually sealed. There was no entrance at all, and it was like a huge safe. This wasn't a problem for the little blue dragon. If there was no entrance, couldn't it just dig one? Sticking to the wall, the little blue dragon moved to the base of the wall and started digging with its claws. In order to prevent the sound from escaping, the little blue dragon used its spiritual power to cover the surrounding few meters. The little blue dragon's claws were very sharp. In less than a minute, it had dug to a depth of more than 1 meter below the base of the wall. Then, it turned around and dug into the warehouse. A few minutes later, the several meters thick stone wall of the warehouse was dug through by the little blue dragon. Under the dim light, another stone wall appeared in the little blue dragon's eyes. It turned out that what it had dug through was only the outermost stone wall of the warehouse. Different from the first layer of the stone wall, the second layer of the stone wall was engraved with runes. These runes were naturally designed by the strange program, and their main purpose was to strengthen the walls. The strange program appeared and wandered around the space between the first and second layer of the stone wall. Soon, it found a spot for the little blue dragon to dig. After receiving instructions from the strange program, the little blue dragon came out of the first hole in the wall and went down along the stone wall. After crawling down for more than 10 meters, it finally reached the spot indicated by the strange program. From now on, the little blue dragon couldn't dig at will. The blue dragon created by the strange program continuously guided the little blue dragon in the direction of digging. Since the runes on the outside were designed by the strange program could infer the simple structure of the warehouse's interior from these runes. If the second layer of the wall was cut open, it would be discovered that the little blue dragon's direction in the wall had always been downward, and then it would dig into the warehouse. Now, the little blue dragon's position was under the warehouse's floor, around the corner of the wall. At this moment, the strange program reminded the little blue dragon that it could dig upwards. The stone at the bottom of the warehouse was actually white, and its hardness was more than double that of the limestone. The little blue dragon's speed of advancement was much slower. After advancing for 3 meters, the white stone layer was gone, and a black metal layer appeared. The little blue dragon scratched the surface with its claws, but only left a few scratches. Stellar stone. At this moment, the little blue dragon recalled the black stones thrown by the flying beasts when they attacked the giant tortoise in the nest of 10,000 beasts. Normal metals couldn't stop the little blue dragon. Only metals refined from stellar stones could be so hard. It didn't expect the Hui clan to lay such a hard metal inside the warehouse. It was obvious that there were many treasures stored in the warehouse. If other beasts encountered such a situation, they would have no choice but to return. However, it wasn't difficult for the little blue dragon to break through this layer of metal because it had dragon flames. Chapter 687. The dragon flames that the little blue dragon spewed out were extremely hot. It was not something that the smelting furnace made by the Rune division could compare to. However, there was a problem. The hole that the little blue dragon dug was too small. If the little blue dragon continued to spit out dragon flames, the local temperature would quickly rise. Perhaps the metal plate would be roasted before a hole was melted. If the space was too small, it was naturally easy. Why not just make the hole bigger? Anyway, the wall was very thick, and they were now at the bottom of the storeroom. The little blue dragon turned around in the hole and dug again. This time, the hole that the little blue dragon dug was directly downward. In less than 10 meters, the bottom of the storeroom was dug through. At this time, another problem arose. That was, the lower half of the storeroom was actually submerged in water. Once the hole was dug downwards, the water rushed up directly. Next, if a large hole was melted in the metal plate, the storeroom would definitely be flooded. The little blue dragon was anxious to save Yang Tian, so naturally, it did not care about this. Even if the entire storeroom was flooded, it would not care. After digging through the passage downwards, the little blue dragon began to expand the hole. After more than an hour, a large hole with a diameter of more than 3 meters appeared at the bottom of the storeroom. The water below the storeroom had long surged up and stuck close to the metal plate. It was better to have water. The little blue dragon used its spiritual power to force the water down. Its head was above the water surface, and it opened its mouth to spit out a golden dragon flame that was as thick as an adult's arm at the metal plate. The water surface was about 1 meter away from the metal plate. As soon as the dragon flame appeared, heat appeared on the water surface in less than 3 seconds. In less than a minute, the water on the upper layer boiled. The water with a low boiling point naturally could not hurt the little blue dragon. It was much more comfortable than no water. After the dragon flame came into contact with the metal plate, it turned red in less than 3 minutes. 3 minutes was the limit that the little blue dragon could continuously spit out dragon flames. It took a breath, and before the temperature of the metal plate dropped much, it continued to spit out dragon flames. After about 10 times, about half an hour later, the metal plate finally began to melt. The obvious change was not in the metal plates, but in the water layer at the bottom of the warehouse. In this half an hour, the overall temperature of the water layer had risen by at least 20 degrees. If it had been another half an hour, the water at the bottom of the warehouse would have started boiling. After the metal plate melted, droplets of it dripped down. The little blue dragon used its mind power to move them away. The droplets fell around its body and made a sizzling sound as they fell to the bottom of the water with a string of white bubbles. At this moment, the little blue dragon discovered that the thickness of the metal plate was not even 1 centimeter. From the hole in the middle, he could see a stone wall. This storehouse was really hard to get into. The little blue dragon sighed in its heart as it continued to spit out dragon flames. After the metal plate began to melt, the speed was much faster. From the center of the melting point, the hole became bigger and bigger. In less than 10 minutes, a round hole with a diameter of 10 centimeters appeared. This was enough for the little blue dragon to pass through easily. The little blue dragon stopped spitting out dragon flames and rested for a while. It slowly retracted its spiritual power, and the water level began to rise slowly. Chi gudong gudong, a harsh sound rang out. The water came into contact with the high-temperature metal plate and boiled at once. The sound was a bit loud, and the little blue dragon immediately dived into the water. At this time, it was just resting for a while and checking if there was any movement outside. If the movement inside was heard by the guards outside, it would be troublesome. After staying in the water for more than 10 minutes, the metal plate cooled down, and the little blue dragon did not notice any movement outside. Two thick stone walls, coupled with the rune defense, in fact, even if there was thunder inside, the guards outside would not be able to detect it. Seeing that there was no movement outside, the little blue dragon swam up and quickly passed through the metal plate. What appeared in its eyes was the third layer of stone wall. This layer of stone wall was made of small bluestones. There were no runes on it. At first glance, it was obvious that it was added when the storehouse was arranged. The little blue dragon continued to dig and chisel. In less than a minute, the stone wall, which was less than 10 centimeters thick, was dug through by the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon followed a stream of water and rushed into the storehouse. As soon as it entered the storehouse, the little blue dragon flew into the air. The storehouse was dark, and the strange program appeared again. Its body became brighter and brighter, projecting a bright blue light around. The situation in the storehouse finally appeared in the eyes of the little blue dragon. This was a square stone room. The stone door on the opposite side was closed. It covered an area of about 200 square meters. The distance from the bottom of the stone room to the top was about 10 meters. Against the four sides of the wall, there were tall metal shelves with small boxes placed on them. In the middle of the stone room, there were dozens of large boxes stacked together. The little blue dragon had seen these large boxes before. Back in the mine, the Hui family used these boxes to transport the louse crystals. The little blue dragon landed on the keyhole of the box at the top. It used its claws to push it. The box was locked. Without the key to open the box, the little blue dragon could only use brute force to destroy the box. It used its claws to smash the box made of hardwood. Voila! The long lice crystals in the box scattered. The box was indeed filled with louse crystals. The little blue dragon was not interested in louse crystals. It was looking for life crystals. Only life crystals obtained from exotic beasts could be easily digested and provide it with a large amount of energy. There were none in the large boxes, so it could only look for them in the small boxes. Bang! 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 The little blue dragon no longer used its claws. Instead, it used its tail to hit the box. The small box was made of metal. Although it was hard, the material was very brittle. It opened after being hit twice by the little blue dragon. From the small box, many life crystals fell out. There were also round beads of various colors. These thumb-sized beads were the same as the life crystals. They emitted a faint energy wave. The little azure dragon did not have to guess to know that these things were refined from life crystals. Human cultivators could not consume life crystals directly. They could only consume various types of pills to enhance their energy. Apart from the life crystals and pills, there were other items that the little blue dragon could not recognize. For example, there were rune weapons, ancient books, secret maps, and so on. These were the treasures of the Hui family. The little blue dragon was only interested in the life crystals and pills. After smashing a box on the shelf, it opened its mouth and sucked all the life crystals and pills into its mouth. The little blue dragon could not take it after swallowing so many life crystals and pills. However, it temporarily put these things in its stomach like an item space. When it returned to the secret room, it would spit them out. The little blue dragon smashed a box on the shelf. After taking away the life crystals and pills, the little blue dragon flew to the next shelf. There were many items in the storeroom. In fact, all of them could be stored in a storage tool. It would be safer that way. However, the Hui family did not belong to one person. It was a family that belonged to a group of people. It was impossible for Hui Baixing to put everything into his storage bracelet. The storeroom that stored the family's wealth would be inspected by the elders in turns every once in a while. When the little blue dragon smashed a box on the second metal shelf and took away the pills and life crystals, the strange program noticed that there were changes in the rune energy outside. It immediately reminded the little blue dragon, "Someone's here." This time, it was the second elder who inspected the storeroom. The second elder's name was Hui Baixing. He looked old. As soon as he walked into the storeroom, his eyelids twitched. He frowned as he felt that something was wrong. Hui Baixing quickened his steps. Pung! The little blue dragon did not leave immediately. Instead, it came to the third metal shelf and smashed a box. Inside the box, there was a black ball. The surface of the ball was smooth and it had a diameter of about 10 centimeters. It was so black that the little blue dragon felt like its soul was being sucked in when it saw it. "Xiaolong, leave now." The strange program reminded it again when it saw that the little blue dragon was still staring at the black ball. The little blue dragon then reacted. It opened its mouth and sucked the ball into its mouth. It then dove into the water. At that moment, the water that was gushing in was more than a meter high. Chapter 688. Huehe Baixing was stunned to see the mess in the warehouse. He then yelled, "Someone, the warehouse has been robbed." As the second elder had entered, the surrounding runes were deactivated. The little blue dragon returned the way it had come and left the warehouse easily. Soon, it returned to the secret chamber. The warehouse was an important place of the Hui family. Once something happened, the entire underground city would be sealed. Soon, Huehe Baixing, the elders, and the managers arrived at the warehouse. The warehouse had been raised and the bottom half was above the water. The water in the warehouse leaked out too. After some cleaning, the losses were finally calculated. Huehe Baixing clenched his teeth and said, "1/3 of the life crystals have been stolen. We've lost half of the pills and an unknown treasure. When I came, the water temperature in the warehouse was very high. It seems like the thief has just left." "How did the thief get in?" Huehe Baixing glanced at the wet warehouse and asked solemnly. The Hui family had just built the underground city and had spent a lot of money. The warehouse was basically the entire family's property. This time, they had lost at least 1/3 of it. If the second elder had not come in time, the losses would have been even greater. "We only found a hole." The middle-aged manager in charge of the warehouse wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and pointed at a hole that was only about 10 centimeters wide. Huehe Baixing quickly walked to the corner and squatted down to look into the hole. It was a little dark. Huehe Baixing extended his hand and moved a few green rocks away. A black metal plate appeared. There was also a big hole on the metal plate. The hole on the rock was obviously dug out. However, the hole on the metal plate was burned. "It's not man-made. It's a mutated beast," Huehe Baixing concluded after looking at the metal plate. Then, he picked up another green rock and looked at the claw mark on it. Huehe Miao Miao came to Huehe Baixing and asked, "What mutated beast is it? It can even melt the metal extracted from the star rock." Huehe Baixing did not answer. After a moment of silence, he suddenly smiled. Huehe Miao Miao felt strange seeing the smile on Huehe Baixing's face. Her elder brother's eyes were filled with anger earlier, but now he seemed happy. Hui Miao Miao didn't ask any more questions because she knew that her elder brother had already guessed something. "What do we do now?" the third elder walked over and asked. Huehe Baixing stood up, clapped his hands and said, "Search the entire city. This warehouse can't be used anymore. Clean up the things and put them in storage tools. It's safer." Second elder and third elder looked at each other and frowned at the same time. Even though he was unwilling to do so, if he was able to steal something from such a well-guarded storeroom, there was no guarantee that it would be stolen again if he continued to store it in the storeroom. Thus, storing it in his storage tool was the best way to prevent theft. However, that would mean that he would have to apply to the Radiant Star for permission to use it in the future. When the little blue dragon returned to the secret chamber, it opened its mouth and spat out the life crystals and pills that it had stolen from the storage room. They piled up like a small hill in the secret chamber. Although it was troublesome, the reward was great. With the energy, the little blue dragon would be able to keep Yang Tian alive for a long time. The little blue dragon did not think too much about the future. It planned to live one day at a time until Yang Tian came back to life. Most of the life crystals that the little blue dragon retrieved were black illusion-level life crystals, while a small portion of them were silvery-white origin-level life crystals. However, there was not a single life crystal that was of enlightenment level. However, it was different for the pills. Judging from the aura that they exuded, almost all of them were of illusion level and above. The little blue dragon did not care what level or how valuable the life crystals were as long as they could be used to replenish its energy. Looking at the bloody ball and sensing the life aura that came from it, the little blue dragon removed the bug brain pendant after making sure that Yang Tian was alright. It then enlarged its body. It stopped when it was about 5 to 6 meters long. It then opened its mouth and sucked more than 10 silvery white life crystals into its mouth. Subsequently, the little blue dragon closed its eyes and began to digest the energy of the life crystals. Half a day passed quickly. After absorbing more than 10 origin-level life crystals, the little blue dragon opened its eyes. At that moment, it had replenished a portion of its energy from the blood essence that it had consumed the last 2 times. There was still no change in the bloody ball. The little blue dragon thought about it and swallowed more than 10 silvery white life crystals again. While the red ball did not have any changes, the little blue dragon worked hard to replenish its energy and even level up. If its level was higher, the quality of its blood essence would be higher. It might be of greater help to Yang Tian. 10 days later. In the red ball, Yang Tian's life aura weakened again. The little blue dragon took another drop of blood essence and merged it into the red ball. Just like the previous 2 times, the red ball expanded as soon as it merged with the little blue dragon's blood essence. This time, the red ball only stopped growing when it reached a diameter of 1 meter. In the enlarged bloody ball, Yang Tian's life aura was even stronger. You seem to have made a mistake. Just when the little blue dragon was about to swallow more life crystals to replenish its energy so that it could replenish Yang Tian's blood essence the next time, the strange program appeared and said to the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon looked at the blue dragon silhouette that was exactly the same as itself. Its eyes were filled with doubts. The strange program said again, "Can't you think of a way to replenish this bloody ball with other energy?" The little blue dragon was stunned when it heard what the strange program said. It thought to itself that it had no other energy before and could only provide Yang Tian with its own blood essence. Now that it had so many life crystals and a large number of pills, it could use another method. The little blue dragon was too busy. It was focused on providing blood essence to maintain Yang Tian's life, and did not think of anything else. Now that it had the strange program's reminder, it felt as if it had been enlightened. After reminding the little blue dragon, the strange program returned to the bug brain pendant. Even if it used other methods, the little blue dragon would have to replenish its energy first. It had just taken some of Yang Tian's blood essence, and it was not in good spirits. In fact, using blood essence would cause great harm to the little blue dragon. Simply replenishing energy would not be able to make up for such damage. This time, the little blue dragon directly swallowed hundreds of returnation-level life crystals. After absorbing half of the energy from the life crystals, the remaining half was wrapped in the little blue dragon's spirit power. It condensed into a stream and slowly approached the red ball. It was the little blue dragon's first attempt. If the red ball could absorb the energy, the little blue dragon planned to use this method to provide energy for Yang Tian in the future. In this way, its body would be equivalent to an energy reactor. Compared to using blood essence to replenish Yang Tian, this method would not cause any harm to its body at all. When the energy came into contact with the red ball, there was no reaction at all. It was the same after several attempts. The little blue dragon used its spirit power to approach the red ball. It wanted to see the changes inside the red ball, but it was blocked as well. The little blue dragon had to give up. Since this method did not work, it could only use the previous method. The little blue dragon was not discouraged by the failure of this attempt. 24 days later, the red ball's life aura changed and began to weaken rapidly. The little blue dragon immediately took some blood essence and melted it into the red ball. This time, the red ball did not grow bigger. Instead, it slowly became transparent. A black silhouette appeared vaguely inside. It was curled up like a fetus in a mother's womb. Seeing this, the little blue dragon could not help but be excited. It turned out that the red ball was a blood fetus. Yang Tian's new body was being nurtured in the blood fetus. Chapter 689. Looking at this blood fetus, a strange feeling suddenly appeared in the little azure dragon's mind. That was, the blood fetus still needed a drop of its essence blood. With that feeling, the little blue dragon scratched the space between its eyebrows with its claw without hesitation. Bright red blood oozed out of the wound. The little blue dragon used its mind power to condense the blood into a blood bead and dropped it on the blood fetus. As soon as the blood bead landed on the blood fetus, it was immersed in it. Then, a faint red halo appeared on the surface of the blood fetus. The little blue dragon was exhausted after taking its blood essence twice. It did not even want to open its eyes, but it persevered and stared at the blood fetus. There were changes in the blood fetus. The strange program appeared and looked at the red ball that was about a meter in diameter curiously. Soon after the red halo appeared on the surface of the blood fetus, it began to become more transparent. The situation inside was very clear. In the middle of the blood fetus there was a human baby that looked like it was 3 or 4 years old. Its eyes were shut tight, and its hands and feet had yet to grow fingers. Its face was blurry too. It seemed like Yang Tian's body was not fully grown yet. There were layers of thin red filaments on the outside of the baby's body. They looked like capillaries. The outer layer of the hard red shell was the darkest part. Countless red filaments extended from the hard shell. The little blue dragon persevered for more than 10 minutes and could not take it anymore. It put a black fantasy level life crystal into its mouth and swallowed it. It then closed its eyes and began to rest. Xiao Long, who was transformed by the strange program, flew around the blood fetus. It then stopped in the air and rolled its eyes as if it was thinking. After a few minutes, the strange program flew on the surface of the blood fetus again. This time, it flew in a regular pattern. Every once in a while, the program would touch the blood fetus. During the short process, runes appeared one after another. They then turned into a faint blue glow and flowed to the baby in the middle of the blood fetus through the red filament. In the beginning, the strange program was not very fast. An ordinary person could see its flight path clearly with their naked eyes. But not long after, the strange program's flight path could no longer be seen. The blood fetus was wrapped in a blue halo. This situation lasted for about half an hour. During this process, countless runes appeared and were transmitted to the baby in the blood fetus through the red thread. This was how the strange program transmitted all the rune information in the rune database to Yang Tian. After the signal was transmitted, the Xiao Long transformed from the strange program, became extremely pale, and returned to the insectoid brain pendant. It had to be said that a human's talent was created in their mother's womb. The strange program used this method to change Yang Tian's talent in runes. There was no guarantee that the strange program would succeed, but it was better than doing nothing, right? The little blue dragon fell into a short slumber. The strange program consumed a lot of energy and also began to sleep. According to the calculation of time on Earth, Yang Tian had already been asleep for several months. During these several months, Yang Tian had been dreaming. The dream was chaotic. At first, it was some of his experiences on Earth. In the dream, there were many battles. Then, he came to the universe and also fought to Yang Tian. This dream felt like he was reliving all the battles he had fought in the past. Finally, Yang Tian dreamed of a dragon. The environment in the dream was like the ancient era on Earth. Not only were there dragons, there were also many huge, exotic beasts. Yang Tian, who had transformed into a dragon, experienced countless battles again. When the strange program transmitted rune information to Yang Tian found that he had returned to the Superstar Divinity Temple and was learning runes from High Priest Taiyu. In this dream, the strange program did not exist. Yang Tian's talent in runes was also very high and was often praised by High Priest Taiyu. The process of the strange program transmitting runes to Yang Tian took less than an hour. However, to Yang Tian in the dream, it was like thousands of years had passed. In the end, his attainment in runes far surpassed his teacher, High Priest Taiyu. That was the end of the dream about runes. Then, it was a pure nightmare. The world in the dream was very similar to the tomb of the god of sin where Qin Fei was now. In the blood fetus, Yang Tian grew very quickly. 10 days later, his face became clear. His hands and feet grew fingers, and fine hair grew on his head. At this moment, Yang Tian looked exactly the same as when he was 5 or 6 years old. The little blue dragon had already absorbed an illusion-level life crystal and woke up. After its body grew, Yang Tian's heartbeat could be heard from the blood fetus. The rune array in the secret room could not only conceal life aura but also prevent energy from leaking out. The little blue dragon brought back a large number of life crystals and pills. They were constantly emitting energy although it was slow. When the little blue dragon woke up, the energy density in the secret room was very high. At this moment, it was surprised to find that a lot of energy was absorbed by the blood fetus as soon as it came into contact with it. The blood fetus had finally begun to absorb energy from the outside. It was a good sign. The little blue dragon's previous attempt had failed as it thought that the blood fetus could only absorb its blood essence. Since the blood fetus could now absorb energy from life crystals and pills, the little blue dragon could provide Yang Tian with a large amount of energy. In the secret room, there were not many returnation-level life crystals left. There were about 100 of them left. The little blue dragon sucked all of them into its mouth in one breath. To the little blue dragon, returnation-level life crystals could no longer increase the energy in its body rapidly. After the life crystals melted in its body, the little blue dragon opened its mouth and spat all the energy into the blood fetus. As expected, it was different from before. As soon as the energy came into contact with the blood fetus, it was absorbed by the blood fetus. At this moment, the blood fetus was like a bottomless pit. As soon as it began to absorb energy, the little blue dragon was overjoyed. After the blood fetus absorbed the energy from more than 100 life crystals, the little blue dragon swallowed a black image-level life crystal. For 10 days, the little blue dragon kept swallowing life crystals and spitting all the energy from the life crystals into the blood fetus. In the process of absorbing energy, Yang Tian, who was in the blood fetus, did not change at all. However, the life aura emitted from Yang Tian's body was getting stronger. When the third image-level life crystal was absorbed by the blood fetus finally began to change. In the little blue dragon's eyes, the color of the blood fetus began to darken. Soon, it became a pitch-black sphere. Whoosh, when the blood fetus turned completely black, there was a strange sound coming from the pile of life crystals behind the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon turned around and saw that it was a black sphere that it had brought out from the storeroom. It was rolling toward the black blood fetus. The two black spheres were like two planets. The smaller one was attracted to the larger one. The little blue dragon looked hesitant when it saw that. Should it let the little black sphere get close to the blood fetus? It might be an opportunity for Yang Tian. Or, the little black sphere might cause devastating damage to the blood fetus. The little blue dragon had no idea what the little black sphere was. To be safe, it decided to stop the little black sphere from getting close to the blood fetus. It opened its mouth and sucked the little black sphere into its mouth. Poof! All of a sudden, the black blood fetus exploded. A little boy of 5 or 6 years old appeared in front of the little blue dragon. Yang Tian came out. Xiaolong, the first thing Yang Tian did when he came out was to run to the little blue dragon. He hugged the little blue dragon's head and pressed his face against the little blue dragon's face. He could not help but cry. After Yang Tian woke up, he recalled everything that the little blue dragon had done for him during this period of time. Chapter 690. Yang Tian did not expect that when he woke up, he would actually become a child. Fortunately, although his body had turned into a child's appearance, the storage bracelet could still be used. I've regained my youth. Yang Tian took out a black t-shirt from the storage bracelet and put it on. He could not help but smile bitterly when he found that it was like a skirt. At this time, his height was only about 3 meters, compared to his previous height of nearly 2 meters. In any case, he finally had a physical body again. This was a blessing in disguise. After putting on the black t-shirt, Yang Tian sat cross-legged on the ground and began to observe the energy world. The original realm was the same as before. There were no changes. For a long time, Yang Tian thought that the energy world of a cultivator existed in the physical body. After this disaster, he finally understood that the energy world was not as simple as he thought. It was probably like the storage bracelet, separate from the cultivator's body. After observing the energy world, Yang Tian focused his mind on the cells in his body. From a microscopic point of view, he found that the cells in his body had undergone obvious changes. Every cell in his body was filled with stronger vitality than before. After some observation, Yang Tian suddenly understood why this physical body had turned into a child's appearance. This was because compared to the growth process of a dragon, the little blue dragon was still a young dragon. Most of the cells that made up Yang Tian's current body came from the little blue dragon. After the original body cells combined with the body cells of the little blue dragon, they became what they were now. In order to verify his conjecture, Yang Tian raised his hands. With a thought, his hands turned into a pair of dragon claws. In the past, to turn his hands into dragon claws, he needed the power of the dragon orb to activate it. Now, he only needed to use his mind to control it. The speed of the transformation was also very fast. Yang Tian smiled. With another thought, his hands returned to their original appearance. His hands could change at will, but what about his entire body? As soon as this thought appeared, Yang Tian realized that his body had changed. In a few seconds, he had turned into Xiaolong. When the little blue dragon saw this, its eyes suddenly widened in surprise. In the past, when Yang Tian transformed into a dragon, he would erupt with powerful energy wave. But now, it looked very free and smooth, as though Yang Tian was originally a head. Yang Tian could feel the process of the change even more clearly. In the past, there would always be a feeling of obstruction when he changed. But now, it could be described as flowing clouds and flowing water. It was very carefree. Yang Tian, who had transformed into a dragon, had the same ability as the little blue dragon. He flew a few rounds in the air happily before landing on the ground. Xiaolong, even if I go to the dragon tribe now, your dragon tribe won't treat me as an outsider, right? After transforming back into a human, Yang Tian said with a chuckle. His body had become childish. Yang Tian's words were also childish. The little blue dragon nodded seriously. After swallowing a large number of life crystals, the little blue dragon was about to break through. Previously, because of Yang Tian, the little blue dragon had been suppressing itself and did not break through. Now it could finally relax. What about Yang Tian? Although he had a young body now, he was at the peak of the returnance realm. He felt that he could break through with just one more step. This was all thanks to the little blue dragon giving him enough energy before he had a hemorrhage. Yang Tian did not drop in level during the process of rebirth. After the little blue dragon swallowed a life comprehension pill, it lay on the ground and closed its eyes. Yang Tian sat to the side with his legs crossed. He propped up his little head and waited quietly for the little blue dragon. 3 days later, a dragon's roar rang out in the secret room. The powerful sound wave reverberated throughout the secret room, causing Yang Tian's ears to ring. This was the little blue dragon's carefree roar after breaking through. At this moment, the little blue dragon had broken through to the peak of the illusion realm, just as Yang Tian had expected. This was because both he and the little blue dragon had an energy world in their bodies. After breaking through to the peak of the illusion realm, the little blue dragon's entire body had turned completely golden. It had become a true golden dragon. When the little azure dragon opened its eyes and let out a roar, it exuded an aura of contempt for the world. After venting, the little blue dragon shrunk its body and turned back into a mini dragon. It sat on Yang Tian's shoulder. This had become a habit of the little blue dragon. After shrinking, the little azure dragon was still green, and its eyes were not like before. They were very sharp. Next, it was Yang Tian's turn. Yang Tian yearned for power too much. If he was strong enough, he would not have encountered such a crisis in the lair of myriad beasts. He swore in his heart that such a thing would never happen again. Yang Tian's cultivation speed was slower than the little blue dragon's. It took a full 10 days, and after swallowing 2 Destiny Enlightenment Realm pills, Yang Tian finally succeeded in breaking through. The reason why he consumed twice as much energy as the little blue dragon was because most of the energy was absorbed by the original realm. The original realm in Yang Tian's body did not expand during this advancement. However, a huge black hole appeared in the original realm. This black hole was formed from a star. As soon as the black hole formed, a large number of celestial bodies in the surroundings were sucked into the black hole. Its appearance shocked Yang Tian for a while, because it was not just the celestial bodies. Even a small part of the energy in the original realm was absorbed by the black hole. Fortunately, the original realm did not collapse because of the appearance of the black hole. The energy of the entire world slowly stabilized after the initial shock. In fact, after the black hole appeared, Yang Tian's original realm looked like a real universe. What was there in the universe? There were scattered meteorites, planets, stars, galaxies formed by many planets, and mysterious black holes. Although the appearance of the black hole caused the original realm to lose a large amount of energy, Yang Tian felt the opposite. The existence of the black hole made him feel a heavy power. The appearance of the black hole made Yang Tian feel as if he had a new ability. After the advancement, Yang Tian opened his eyes. A black light flashed in his eyes. The little blue dragon could not help but palpitate when he saw this. "Xiao Long, attack me with your dragon flames," Yang Tian said to the little blue dragon in order to test out the idea in his heart. The little blue dragon nodded and retreated a distance. It was about 20 meters away from Yang Tian. Opening its mouth, the little blue dragon spat out a golden flame at Yang Tian. Compared to the dragon flames from before, the temperature of the dragon flames that the little blue dragon spat out now was higher. As soon as it appeared, the temperature in the entire secret room rose by dozens of degrees in an instant. Facing the incoming dragon flames, Yang Tian raised his right hand and grabbed with the dragon flames. A black ball appeared in the palm of his hand. The little blue dragon's dragon flames were instantly sucked into the black ball. "Haha! As expected. That's great." Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh happily. In the future, Yang Tian had a new ability. If the enemy attacked him, he could use this method to absorb the enemy's energy. Of course, there was a limit to this. If the enemy's attack was too powerful, this method could not be used. Seeing Yang Tian's proud look, the little blue dragon raised its head and slammed its claw on the ground. Its small body suddenly turned into two, one on the left and one on the right. It rushed towards Yang Tian and landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. The little blue dragon went from 1 to 2. Yang Tian looked left and right at the two little blue dragons. From their aura, touch, taste, and vision, he could not tell which one was real. However, because he was connected to the little blue dragon's mind, Yang Tian carefully sensed it. He raised his hand and grabbed the little blue dragon that was on his left shoulder. The little blue dragon on his right shoulder suddenly disappeared. Yang Tian could tell who was real, but others definitely could not. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon both had new abilities. Chapter 691. Take this! Yang Tian yelled softly and raised his hand to grab the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon's tiny body was sucked in by the strong suction force in his palm and disappeared into the black hole that appeared in his palm. However, this was not the real little blue dragon. It was just a clone of the little blue dragon. Just as Yang Tian retracted his hand, two green shadows pounced on him from both sides. They were so fast that Yang Tian had to dodge them. During this process, Yang Tian's neck was scratched by the little blue dragon's claws. Blood immediately flowed out. Yang Tian was injured and the battle ended with his defeat. Although he had lost, Yang Tian smiled happily. As long as he did not rely on his intuition to determine which Xiaolong was the real one, he would not be able to attack the real little blue dragon. More than 10 days had passed since the human and dragon had successfully leveled up. Yang Tian did not leave immediately. Instead, he stayed with the little blue dragon to familiarize himself with his new abilities. During this process, Yang Tian was surprised to find that he had grown a lot taller. When he first came out, he was 6 or 7 years old. After leveling up for more than 10 days, he had grown at least 10 centimeters. He was now 1.4 meters tall and looked like a 12 or 13-year-old child. As for the clothes on his body, the little blue dragon went out a few times and stole a few bolts of cloth and some sewing tools from other people's shops to make a few sets of clothes for himself. They were all high-quality fabrics made of soft animal fur. They were breathable, warm, and as smooth as silk. Now, Yang Tian was wearing a black robe with an exquisite animal leather belt around his waist. He was bald and looked very handsome. Looking at himself in the mirror, Yang Tian thought to himself that when he returned to Earth, with his current handsome appearance, he could film a period drama series. He would definitely charm a lot of young girls. Yang Tian sorted out the life crystals and pills that the little blue dragon had stolen from the Hui family's warehouse and stored them in his storage bracelet. There were 95 black illusion level life crystals, 52 returnance level pills, 30 illusion level pills, and 16 enlightenment level pills. There was also a black ball of unknown origin. This was a huge amount of wealth. If he brought these things out, it was guaranteed that he would be able to eat and drink well without any problems. Moreover, Yang Tian also had a large pile of colored crystals. The colorful crystal that was left behind after the giant tortoise's death contained much more energy than an ordinary life crystal. After staying in the secret room for another 7 days, Yang Tian found that his body was no longer growing. He planned to leave the secret room and go outside. Now that he had advanced to the illusion realm, coupled with his new abilities, very few people in the flame domain could defeat him and the little azure dragon. The items in the secret room were all stored in his storage bracelet. Yang Tian glanced at the secret room that he had stayed in for a few months and activated the teleportation rune in the secret room. When the blue light disappeared, Yang Tian appeared in the forest near the underground city. There were many people from the Hui family. When Yang Tian appeared in the forest, there were many guards from the Hui family nearby. There were also some cultivators who had just come out or were preparing to enter the underground city. This situation surprised Yang Tian. However, thinking about it, it was probably because the warehouse had been stolen. Everyone who went in and out would be questioned. The little blue dragon was currently hiding in Yang Tian's wide sleeve. In addition, Yang Tian's appearance had changed, so no one could recognize him. After coming out of the teleportation portal, Yang Tian walked out of the forest openly. Stop! A guard captain saw that Yang Tian's clothes and appearance were rather strange, so he frowned and called out. The guard captain was only a returnance cultivator. How could he stop Yang Tian? Yang Tian glanced at the guard captain with a smile. With a move, he turned into a black shadow and charged into the forest ahead. This forest was actually created by a talisman array and was designed by a strange program. To Yang Tian, it was completely useless. When the guard captain and his subordinates charged out of the forest, Yang Tian's figure had already disappeared. Due to the abnormal situation, the guard captain had already sent people to sound the alarm. Not long after Yang Tian left the forest, an elder of the Hui family arrived with people. In order to prevent Yang Tian from hiding in the forest, the elder had people deactivate the illusionary formation. What appeared before them was a barren plain. Yang Tian was nowhere to be seen. Did you see wrongly? The elder asked with a frown as he looked at the surprised guard captain. The guard captain said, "We saw it clearly. It was a black-clothed child. When I told him to stop, he charged into the forest. He was very fast. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have disappeared so quickly after entering the illusionary formation. Unless he's extremely familiar with the paths in the illusionary formation." After the guard captain finished speaking, the elder said, "He shouldn't have gone far. Let's chase after him and take a look." The people of the Hui family reacted very quickly. Not even 3 minutes had passed since Yang Tian had appeared. Although it had only been 3 minutes, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon had already left the Hui family long ago. At this moment, the little blue dragon was carrying Yang Tian and flying rapidly in the sky. After advancing to the pinnacle of the illusionary realm, the little blue dragon no longer felt that carrying Yang Tian was strenuous. It wouldn't be a problem to fly for a few days. After flying for more than 10 minutes, the Hui family's dilapidated land could no longer be seen. Only then did the little blue dragon land on the ground. When it came out, the little blue dragon randomly chose a direction to fly in. This world was very big. Without a map, it would be very difficult to reach the destination. Yang Tian stood on a small hill and looked around. Where should he go? Yang Tian wanted to go to the cloud region. Back at the lair of myriad beasts, the people from the temple must have thought that he was dead. Now that Yang Tian looked like a child, no one would be able to link him to the old Yang Tian. As long as the little blue dragon didn't appear, Yang Tian could openly appear in the cloud region. He could even appear near the temple. Looking at the vast area around him, Yang Tian felt very comfortable. He felt a sense of freedom. The world was very big. He could go anywhere. Xiaolong, let's go to the cloud region. Yang Tian looked around and said with a smile. After saying that, he took out a directional device from his storage bracelet. At this moment, the star was hanging in the middle of the sky. It was impossible to determine the direction in a short period of time. They could only rely on directional devices. The device in Yang Tian's hand didn't rely on the magnetic field of the Earth to determine the direction. Instead, it used runes. Looking at the needle on the device, Yang Tian turned his body and pointed forward. Xiaolong, do you see that? Fly in that direction. If it was morning, Yang Tian could have made the little blue dragon fly in the direction of the rising star. There was no mistake. Wait a minute. Just as Yang Tian finished speaking, a familiar voice sounded beside Yang Tian. The radiant 100 stars. It was the radiant 100 stars that suddenly appeared. If it wasn't for Xiaolong and Yang Tian, I wouldn't have recognized you. The radiant 100 stars walked toward Yang Tian with a smile. Behind Huehe Baixing was an excited Huehe Miao Miao. Chapter 692. Yang Tian didn't expect Radiance Baixing to suddenly appear here. It seemed like Radiance Baixing already knew that Yang Tian wasn't dead. You're not dead, I guessed it a long time ago. Radiance Baixing walked in front of Yang Tian and said with a smile. Seeing Radiance Baixing, Yang Tian felt a little guilty. This was because Little Blue Dragon had stolen a third of their storehouse. Perhaps it was because of this that Xiao Long had left behind some traces that Radiance Baixing had guessed. Sure enough, Radiance Baixing said, when the storehouse was stolen, I saw the claw marks at the entrance and the melted stone crystals. Furthermore, the array glyphs in the storehouse had been silently broken through, so I guessed that it was Xiao Long who did it. Little Blue Dragon couldn't help but lower its head after hearing Radiance Baixing's words. It didn't do a clean job. Ha ha ha! Seeing Yang Tian's awkward expression, Radiance Baixing laughed. Clan leader. Yang Tian didn't know what to say. Radiance Baixing said, Don't worry. Take what Xiao Long took as your reward for building the underground city for our clan. Radiance Baixing said that Xiao Long took and didn't steal, so Yang Tian was very grateful. Furthermore, the reward was simply too generous. How did you become like this? After speaking, Radiant Disaster Baixing sized up Yang Tian and asked curiously. Yang Tian said, Although I escaped, I suffered heavy injuries and became like this. But it's fine, I'll grow a little with each increase in my cultivation. Radiance Baixing nodded and said, Why didn't you tell me or Miao Miao before leaving? Don't forget, she's your woman. Yang Tian said, It's not that I don't trust Patriarch, but I don't want more people to know that I'm still alive. This will also cause trouble for you. Radiance Calamity Baixing sighed and said, This is indeed troublesome. There are too many people in the clan, and there are also outsiders mixed in. I actually want to keep you here, but if the Divine Hall finds out about this, it will be detrimental to our clan, so I won't keep you here. After the Radiance Calamity Baixing finished speaking, he paused for a moment before continuing. This old man knows that you are not familiar with the Yin domain. Bring Miao Miao with you. She will help you reach the Cloud domain smoothly. This. Yang Tian looked at Huey Miao Miao in shock. At this moment, Huehe Miao Miao was still in a daze. Seeing Yang Tian's hesitation, Huey Baixing coughed twice and gave his sister a look. Only then did Huey Miao Miao react. She said to Yang Tian, I'm already your woman. Wherever you go, I'll follow. This was the meaning of, if you marry a chicken, follow the chicken, if you marry a dog, follow the dog. Huey Miao Miao's tone was very resolute when she said this. Yang Tian could not refuse this matter. That's it. This old man will not send you off. You should leave quickly before the clan members find this place. After Huey Baixing finished speaking, he turned around and appeared a few hundred meters away. With another flash, he disappeared from Yang Tian's sight. To be honest, Huey Miao Miao was not used to seeing Yang Tian's current state. Others were fine, but she had intimate contact with Yang Tian before Yang Tian looked in the direction Huey Baixing disappeared in and thought for a moment. He somewhat understood what Huey Baixing meant. Huey Baixing wanted Huey Miao Miao to stay by Yang Tian's side. At the very least, Yang Tian would not join another clan. Also, the fact that Yang Tian had been able to come out alive from the large array set up by the Sacred Hall officials proved that Yang Tian's abilities were stronger than he had expected. Huey Baixing believed that Yang Tian's future was limitless. If one were to disregard familial ties, Huey Miao Miao would not be of much use in the Hui family. However, it would be beneficial for the Hui family if she stayed by Yang Tian's side. Huey Miao Miao also hoped to stay by Yang Tian's side. Huey Baixing knew that it would be very difficult to get back the items that the little blue dragon had taken from the Hui family's treasury. Therefore, He might as well do Yang Tian a favor. If Huey Baisheng had been so generous and given Yang Tian so much remuneration after he had helped the Hui family build the underground city, Yang Tian would not have joined the hunting division. Of course, if Huey Baisheng had really wanted to give Yang Tian so much remuneration, the clan elders would have objected. Let's set off. Yang Tian looked in the direction Huey Baisheng had disappeared in and shook his head helplessly. Huey Miao Miao smiled and nodded. Huey Miao Miao was very happy that Yang Tian had agreed. It was time to set off again. The little blue dragon transformed into a huge dragon that was more than 20 meters long and prepared to carry the two of them. Walking on the ground was not as fast as flying. Yang Tian, how do you intend to go to the cloud territory? Huey Miao Miao asked with a smile when she saw Yang Tian straddle the little blue dragon's back. Looking at Yang Tian, Huey Miao Miao found it interesting. Keep flying towards the east, Yang Tian said. However, Huey Miao Miao shook her head and said, it's still too slow. Moreover, after leaving this area, we'll encounter many mutated beasts. It'll be very troublesome. Yang Tian had thought about this before. No matter if it was on the ground or in the sky, they would definitely encounter many mutated beasts along the way. If it had been before, Yang Tian would definitely have chosen this method to kill all the beasts along the way and obtain a large number of life crystals. However, he was no longer poor now. He was eager to get information about Qin Fei. Therefore, he had to shorten the time as much as possible. Miao Miao, tell me how to go. I'll listen to you. Yang Tian smiled and said. Huey Miao Miao said, let's go to the west first. We'll go to Llama Mountain. There's a dimensional portal there. As long as we pay a dimensional portal fee, we'll be able to reach the Eternal River at the border between the Flame Territory and the Cloud Territory. From there, we'll take a boat to the Cloud Territory. It was convenient to have someone to lead the way. It saved a lot of trouble. Yang Tian agreed readily. Seeing that Yang Tian agreed to her route, Huey Miao Miao then sat on the little blue dragon's back. She sat behind Yang Tian and hugged Yang Tian tightly. Yang Tian was depressed. Huey Miao Miao was sitting behind him and was much taller than him. Perhaps others would think that he was Huey Miao Miao's son. The little blue dragon turned around and looked. Its eyes were full of smiles. After taking off, the little blue dragon flew in the direction that Huey Miao Miao had pointed out. About an hour later, a white mountain peak appeared in front of them. This mountain looked very strange from afar. Its overall shape was like a giant sword that pierced the sky from the ground. The tip of the sword pierced into the clouds. Huey Miao Miao hugged Yang Tian and pointed at this strange mountain. She said, this is Llama Mountain. Most of the cultivators use the dimensional portal here to travel to and fro. The little blue dragon had already seen this mountain. However, it took them half an hour to get close to Llama Mountain. Yang Tian's vision was slowly occupied by this mountain peak. Llama Mountain was very big. As they got closer, they realized that there were many flying ships and cultivators gathering on the mountain. There were also many flying ships and cultivators leaving the mountain and flying in different directions. Chapter 693. Llama Mountain was like a giant beehive. Countless spaceships and cultivators were like bees that entered and exited. The terrain around Llama Mountain was relatively flat. This made the tall mountain look like it was man-made. Although Llama Mountain had already blocked the vision of Yang Tian and Huey Miao Miao, it still looked extremely far away. Huey Miao Miao pointed at the mountain peak in front of them and said, Yang Tian, do you know why Llama Mountain is so strange? Yang Tian did not know much about this world. He could only shake his head in response to this question. Huey Miao Miao said, it is said that this mountain existed when this continent was formed. After countless years of changes in the terrain, it still stands tall on this piece of land. In other places, even if a mountain range disappears or a new mountain appears, it will not change at all. This is because it is protected by a natural talisman array. A natural talisman array? Yang Tian was very surprised. A natural talisman array, as the name suggested, was a talisman array that was formed naturally. It was not man-made. Nature's uncanny workmanship had endless changes. Some strange sights that were formed occasionally could not be understood by humans no matter how intelligent they were. Yang Tian, I want to understand it. Suddenly, the strange program's voice rang in Yang Tian's mind. Okay. Yang Tian agreed without hesitation. Yang Tian had survived many times because of the strange program's existence. If not for the strange program, he might still be working hard in his original world and would not be able to see such a vast world. Yang Tian would definitely help the strange program fulfill its small request. Yang Tian's departure from the Hui family was equivalent to him taking his second step in this world. Subsequently, he slowly saw the wonders of this world. Under Hui Miao Miao's guidance, the little blue dragon landed on a man-made platform in the middle of the mountain peak. Lama Mountain was very large. Yang Tian estimated that the entire mountain peak occupied at least a few hundred square kilometers. 3 teleportation platforms were arranged in a triangular formation on the platform. After landing, the little blue dragon turned back into a mini dragon and landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. Because Yang Tian was now small, the little blue dragon on his shoulder appeared much bigger. The 3 array platforms lit up with blue light from time to time. Some people walked onto the platforms and were transported away. Some people appeared on the platforms and walked down the stone steps that surrounded the platforms. In less than a minute, at least a dozen people arrived and another dozen left. This was only one platform. There were at least hundreds of such platforms in the entire Lama Mountain. Then, there were at least thousands of people coming and going every minute. The teleportation platform was guarded by several dozen sturdy, silver-armored soldiers with spears in their hands stood on the periphery of the platform, constantly paying attention to the cultivators coming and going. At the innermost part of the platform there was a cave. Hui Miao Miao pointed at the cave and said, "If you don't want to fly out of here, you can go inside. There's a high-speed slide that can reach the foot of the mountain. There are many passenger ships at the foot of the mountain. As long as you pay, you can go to any place in the Yen domain. To use the teleportation platform to leave, one had to pay. There was a toll booth at the side, and it was an automatic toll booth. Yang Tian saw a cultivator arrive on a giant red bird. After landing on the platform, he took out 10 standard-sized louse crystals from his storage bracelet and threw them into a square automatic toll booth that was covered with runes. The automatic toll booth spat out a thin black sheet. This thin sheet was 2 fingers wide and about 5 centimeters long. It was covered with runes. Holding this black sheet, the cultivator and the giant red bird walked onto one of the teleportation platforms. A few seconds later, the platform lit up with blue light. The cultivator and the giant bird disappeared from the platform. Hui Miao Miao was very familiar with this place. She took out 10 louse crystals from her storage bracelet. The cost of teleporting one person was 5 louse crystals. Because the little blue dragon was very small, it was lying on Yang Tian's shoulder, so it could save on the cost of teleportation. Hui Miao Miao took out the louse crystals and walked towards the automatic toll booth. She had only taken a few steps when she was stopped by Yang Tian. "What's wrong?" Hui Miao Miao turned around and looked down at Yang Tian. Being looked down at by Hui Miao Miao, Yang Tian smiled bitterly and said, "This is the first time I've seen such a wondrous sight. I want to take a look around here. Can I?" Hui Miao Miao smiled and said, "Of course. In the entire Lama Mountain, other than the top level, you can visit all the other places as long as you pay louse crystals." "Where's the natural talisman formation?" Yang Tian's eyes lit up as he asked. Hui Miao Miao finally understood why Yang Tian stayed. It was because he was interested in natural talisman formations. Hui Miao Miao knew that Yang Tian's attainments in talisman formations were very high. It was normal for him to be interested in natural talisman formations. Where were the natural talisman formations? Hui Miao Miao could not answer this question. She shook her head and said, "We have to ask the elders of the Lama tribe." "Alright." Yang Tian nodded. "Let's go find the elders of the Lama tribe now," Hui Miao Miao said. "Then we have to go to the top level." After saying that, Hui Miao Miao pulled Yang Tian and walked into the cave that led to the inside of the mountain. After walking a few hundred meters into the cave and exiting the cave, Yang Tian saw an extremely magnificent sight. It turned out that the center of Lama Mountain was actually empty. It had a very wide space. In this space, there were hundreds to thousands of silver-white metal pillars at least 1 meter in diameter. They spiraled down from the top, extending to the bottom that couldn't be seen clearly. They looked like thick springs. On these metal pillars there were pods that could hold 2 people. The pods were outside the metal rings and were driven by talisman energy. They moved up or down at an extremely fast speed. This was the slide that Hui Miao Miao had mentioned. Hui Miao Miao pointed at the slide and said, "If you don't want to fly or just want to have fun, pay 3 Laos crystals and you can ride this slide up and down. The process is very comfortable. Do you want to give it a try?" Yang Tian raised his head and looked up, then looked down and asked curiously, "This is fun. How do we go up?" Just as Yang Tian asked this, he saw the thousands of spiral metal pillars move. They changed their positions at an extremely fast speed. Soon, one of the metal pillars moved to the edge of the cave. The pods descended from above. The metal arms on the pods stretched out and brought the pods close to the cave wall. A young couple walked into the pods. Then, the metal arms of the pods moved and the pods moved away from the cave wall. The pods started to ascend at an extremely fast speed. "Haha! This is too fun. I want to try it." Seeing this, Yang Tian laughed happily. Yang Tian looked like a playful child. Hui Miao Miao could not help but smile. Chapter 694. The cost of riding this high-speed slide was very high. Ordinary cultivators would definitely not be willing to pay 3 Laos crystals per person. If they wanted to climb to the top of Lama Mountain, they would walk along the spiral staircase or use rune magic treasures to fly up. Cultivators who had reached the illusion realm could already fly. However, it consumed too much energy and they could not stay in the sky for too long. Also, flying in the sky was too big of a target. It was easy to become a target for the enemy. Therefore, if it wasn't an emergency or a safe place, no cultivator would fly around in the sky in a flashy manner. Yang Tian and Hui Miao Miao walked along the spiral staircase for a distance. After paying 6 Laos crystals, they sat in the pod like the man and woman from before. The pod was very fast. After rising for less than a minute, it slowly came to a stop. At this time, the pod had already reached the top of Lama Mountain. Yang Tian and Hui Miao Miao came out of the pod. When they looked up, they saw hundreds of huge gears. These huge gears were connected to each other. Each of the gears was connected to a spiral metal column. This was also the reason why the metal column could move at will. These gears were actually driven by rune energy. Rune energy! Yang Tian was suddenly shocked. When the gears were rotating, he vaguely felt a special energy. Then, the words rune energy appeared in his mind. This was the first time Yang Tian felt rune energy so clearly. Almost at the same time, when Yang Tian was in a deep sleep, some fragments of the dream appeared. The strange program's voice suddenly rang in Yang Tian's mind. "The bodies of you humans are truly wondrous. I only transmitted the rune information to your brain. I did not expect your body to undergo some changes during the process of growth. You are now able to sense the rune energy." This was a great thing. Yang Tian could not help but grin. "What are you laughing at?" Huey Meow Meow asked curiously when she saw Yang Tian's silly smile. Yang Tian came to his senses and scratched his head. Nothing, let's go out and take a look. On Llama Mountain, the higher one went, the more magnificent the scenery was. Many cultivators would come here for sightseeing when they had nothing to do. There were many pavilions built on top of the mountain for tourists to rest. When Yang Tian and Huey Meow Meow came out of the cave, they were mesmerized by the scenery in front of them. Huey Meow Meow seemed to have been here before and was extremely familiar with this place. She brought Yang Tian forward for a distance and came to the edge of the cliff. Looking ahead from where they were, they could see everything within 1,000 miles. Looking into the distance, Yang Tian felt a lot more open-minded. After standing at the edge of the cliff for a while, Yang Tian turned around and said to Huey Meow Meow, "Let's go find the elders of the pulling wood race." This was the main purpose of Yang Tian's visit. Huey Meow Meow brought Yang Tian along a small path that led to a higher place. When they reached the end, a cave appeared. Yang Tian stopped here. This was because he sensed that there was rune energy at the entrance of this small cave. After hearing what the strange program said, Yang Tian paid more attention to the rune energy. When he was standing at the edge of the cliff, he tried to sense it but did not discover anything. Huey Meow Meow said, "The pulling wood race mainly cultivates runes. Many talents in the temple are from the pulling wood race. There is a rule here. If you can decipher the rune arrays set up by the pulling wood race and successfully reach the pulling wood hall at the top of the mountain, you can help the pulling wood race accomplish 3 things. This is too interesting. Has anyone ever broken through the rune arrays set up by the pulling wood race before?" Yang Tian asked with a smile. Huey Meow Meow said, "Yes, people from the temple." Yang Tian nodded and walked slowly towards the entrance of the cave. If it was in the past, the strange program would have reminded Yang Tian of the range of the rune energy. But now, the strange program did not make a sound. It also wanted to know if Yang Tian could sense the rune array in front of him with his own senses. Yang Tian could not sense the rune energy clearly. After walking for more than 10 steps, he stopped. This was because he felt that if he took another step forward, he would trigger the rune array in front of him. Yang Tian frowned and thought for a while. Then, he closed his eyes. He wanted to wholeheartedly feel the rune energy in front of him. There were many tourists on the mountain. Some people came here out of curiosity. If it was in the past, they would have turned back when they saw the warning signs. But now, Yang Tian was standing at the entrance of the cave. It seemed like he was going to break through the rune array. This made the tourists here stop and watch curiously. Is that kid going to break through the rune array? How is that possible? He is so young. He hasn't even learned the most basic runes. Then why is he standing there? That beauty is not bad. What is the relationship between her and the kid? Maybe they are mother and son. I don't think so. They look more like siblings. Yang Tian closed his eyes and stood there for a few minutes. More and more tourists came here. With so many people, there were more people talking. Hearing the discussions behind her, Huey Meow Meow could not help but laugh. Others guessed that she and Yang Tian were mother and son or siblings. No one would have thought that they were actually a man and a woman. Yang Tian closed his eyes and focused on feeling the rune energy. Many runes gradually appeared in his mind. Although he did not recognize any of these runes, Yang Tian felt that they were extremely familiar. Countless runes formed a huge sphere in his mind. Then, the scene before him slowly appeared. Soon, it became clear, as if he was seeing it with his eyes. The entrance of the cave was enveloped by a sphere formed by countless runes. At this moment, Yang Tian was less than a foot away from this sphere formed by runes. Just as he felt, if he took another step forward, he would touch the rune array. This was already the limit of what Yang Tian could do. The strange program understood this and said to Yang Tian, "Very good. Practice more in the future and you will have the same ability as me. At that time I can leave you." Leave? Yang Tian did not understand. The strange program said, I also want to live a real life. I want to live with flesh and blood like you humans. Yang Tian understood the strange program's meaning and said, You will definitely do it. Now, it was time for the strange program to take action. Under the strange program's control, Yang Tian raised his hands and put his palms together. His fingers and palms kept changing, faster and faster. Circles of rune energy were emitted from Yang Tian's hands. At this moment, Yang Tian's eyes were still closed. With the help of the strange program, the rune array in Yang Tian's mind became clearer. Without relying on the strange program, Yang Tian could see the range of the rune array and some of the runes that made up the array. With the help of the strange program, he saw the energy lines of the rune array in front of him. Chapter 695. More and more tourists arrived. Although they did not understand why Yang Tian was standing at the cave entrance, they were very curious and looked forward to it. Everyone knew that to reach the top of Lama Mountain, one had to break through the talisman array set up by the Lamu tribe. If one could do this, they could ask the Lamu tribe to do 3 things for them. Of course, these 3 things had to be within the Lamu tribe's ability. Although the Lamu tribe was mysterious, powerful, and proficient in runes, they were not gods. For example, asking to cross the sea of stars to the divine plane, or becoming the richest or strongest person in the world. These were all things they could not do. When they had seen Yang Tian standing at the cave entrance, they had thought that Yang Tian was meditating or trying to attract people. However, when Yang Tian moved, they knew that this kid was trying to crack the talisman array before them. Those who could come to Lama Mountain for sightseeing were undoubtedly cultivators. When they saw the movements of Yang Tian's hands, they knew that Yang Tian was releasing rune energy. There were 2 ways to activate rune energy. One was to carve the rune on a carrier. The other was to use one's hands or other body parts. Thanks to the common use of runes in this world, Yang Tian had collected enough rune information for the strange program when he was with the Hui family. This had made the strange program's rune database more complete. Compared to before he had come to this world, the strange program's ability to calculate and design runes had more than doubled. Rings of rune energy were emitted from Yang Tian's hands. In Yang Tian's vision, the rune energy lines that formed the talisman array before him broke one by one. Once the rune energy lines broke, the rune energy would not be able to operate smoothly. With a bang, a rune carved at the cave entrance exploded and the talisman array disappeared. The first talisman array had been cracked, just like that. No one was surprised that this had been cracked. Yang Tian had taken a long time to crack the array. If it had been the old men from the temple, they would have been able to crack this array in 10 breaths. What they didn't know was that with the help of the strange program, it didn't take more than 10 breaths of time. Standing in front of the symbol array for so long, Yang Tian was actually feeling the energy of the symbol. For Yang Tian, this was a rare opportunity to train. After the talisman array disappeared, Yang Tian and Hui Miao Miao immediately walked into the cave. The tourists who were watching behind them immediately followed. The cave was only a few dozen meters long. Beyond the cave was a suspension bridge. The suspension bridge was more than 50 meters long. On the other side, there was a small path that led to the back of the mountain. The suspension bridge was made up of 18 metal chains. 10 chains were laid at the bottom of the bridge, and the top of the bridge was covered with wooden planks. There were 4 chains on each side of the bridge as guardrails. The guardrail was covered with rectangular metal boxes, which were actually wind chimes. When the wind blew, they would make a pleasant sound. Windchime Bridge, Yang Tian murmured as he looked at the words carved on a stone tablet at the head of the bridge. In the breeze, not only was the wind chime moving, the suspension bridge was also moving. Yang Tian stopped here and didn't step onto the Windchime Bridge for a long time. This was because this bridge was the second stage. The metal chains and wind chimes were all carved with symbol arrays. Yang Tian closed his eyes and carefully felt the energy of the symbol in front of him. In Yang Tian's mind, an extremely strange scene appeared. The range of the array glyphs was usually circular. The entire suspension bridge was covered by 3 different array glyphs. The entire suspension bridge seemed to be in a bubble, and it was 3 big colorful bubbles at that. If the bridge didn't move, it would be fine. It was almost unnoticeable. But in the breeze it swayed, and the 3 bubbles swayed with it. They would sometimes combine into one, and sometimes split apart. This type of symbol array defense was actually a dynamic change of multiple symbol arrays. In the basement of the Hui clan, many places used this method of setting up symbol arrays. And it wasn't just 1 layer. Some had more than 10 layers. But these symbol arrays were static, unlike the symbol array on the suspension bridge. When it swayed, the 3 symbol arrays swayed with it. It was very difficult to set up such a symbol array. The difficulty of this stage was more than twice as high as the previous one. After coming out of the cave, the curious tourists scattered towards the small paths on both sides of the cave. At this time, more than 100 people came to watch the show. Yang Tian stood beside the suspension bridge for more than 10 minutes. Some people became impatient and began to make a ruckus. "Hurry up! We can't wait." "Yeah. Don't dawdle. Can you decipher it or not?" Yang Tian turned a deaf ear to these voices. He was focused on feeling the changes of the 3 symbol arrays on the suspension bridge. Hui Miao Miao heard these shouts and frowned. She turned around and said coldly to the people who were shouting, "Those who are impatient can leave. According to the rules of the wood-pulling tribe, we have the right to do so." If Yang Tian had not deciphered the symbol array at the entrance of the cave, these people would not have come here. After hearing Hui Miao Miao's words, they all shut up. Different from before, the strange program showed the key points of the 3 symbol arrays in Yang Tian's mind in order to let Yang Tian see them more clearly. After more than 10 minutes, Yang Tian suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. At this time, Yang Tian was very happy because the strange program only helped him a little and he could decipher the symbol arrays on the suspension bridge. Yang Tian squatted down and dug out a hard rock from the ground. After standing up, Yang Tian threw the black rock in his hand. He was about to throw the rock in his hand when suddenly, a person flew down from the sky and landed beside Yang Tian, less than 5 meters away from Yang Tian. It was a woman in a black robe. Her black robe had the symbol of the everlasting temple on it. Seeing this person, Hui Miao Miao's eyes widened and she became nervous. This person was Ku Man. Ku Man was a minister of the temple and naturally had the right to meet people from the Pullingwood tribe. This time, Ku Man came to the Pullingwood tribe for a very important matter. She needed the elders of the Pullingwood tribe to come out of seclusion. She did not expect to see a group of people standing beside the wind bell bridge. It was not strange that someone was trying to break through the symbol array. Every once in a while, there would be symbol masters trying to break through. 4 symbol masters, breaking through the symbol arrays of the Pullingwood tribe was a way to increase their fame. The more they broke through, the higher their attainment in the Tao of Runes. Once they were famous, they would be invited by their family or even the temple to show off their skills. Ku Man had seen people breaking through the symbol arrays more than once or twice. The reason she came down was because she saw Hui Miao Miao and the little blue dragon on Yang Tian's shoulder. After the little blue dragon advanced, it had actually become a little yellow dragon. Its entire body was golden. If she only saw the little blue dragon, Ku Man would not find it strange. However, it was different for the little blue dragon and Hui Miao Miao to appear at the same time. Could it be that Yang Tian was not dead? When this thought appeared in her mind, Ku Man did not hesitate to land. At this time, she frowned and kept sizing up Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Chapter 696. Ku-man studied Yang Tian and the little blue dragon on Yang Tian's shoulder before turning around and asking Huey Meow Meow, "Who is he?" When Ku-man first arrived, Huey Meow Meow was still rather nervous. However, when she saw Yang Tian's current appearance, her nervous emotions slowly relaxed. Yang Tian's current appearance was that of a 12 or 13-year-old child. "My name is Mu Yi." Before Huey Meow Meow could reply, Yang Tian said nonchalantly. Yang Tian chose a side of each of the two characters of his name. The characters of this world were completely different from Chinese characters, so Ku-man would never connect the name Yang Tian with Mu Yi. "Mu Yi, what's your relationship with her? Also, this exotic beast on your shoulder, where did it come from?" Ku-man asked two questions in a row. Ever since Ku-man arrived, the onlookers did not even dare to breathe loudly. The people of the Divine Hall were famous for being arrogant and domineering. If they were angered and killed, it would just be bad luck. "Why should I answer you?" Yang Tian stared at Ku-man with his eyes wide open. "I don't know you." "Humph." Ku-man snorted coldly. He turned around and looked at Huey Meow Meow coldly. Yang Tian currently looked like a child. With so many people present, Ku-man did not dare to bully Yang Tian, so he could only let Huey Meow Meow answer. "Mu Yi is a member of my clan. He works in the runes department," Huey Meow Meow answered. "What about the exotic beast?" Ku-man asked again. Huey Meow Meow said, "Sir, you must think that it's Yang Tian's exotic beast, right?" "Clearly not. Look at their color and cultivation. The difference is just too great." Ku-man finally nodded when cultivation was mentioned. Back in the myriad beasts' lair, the little blue dragon and Yang Tian were both at returnance. Now, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon were at the peak of the illusion world. It had only been a short while, yet he had advanced so much. It was completely impossible. Furthermore, Ku-man believed that with Yang Tian's cultivation, it was impossible for him to survive the flame array. However, seeing the hatred in the eyes of the little blue dragon and the little blue dragon, Ku-man guessed that this exotic beast was definitely related to the exotic beast from before. "Don't you still want to break the formation? What are you waiting for?" After Ku-man dispelled the doubt in his heart, he turned his head to look at Yang Tian and said with a smile. Yang Tian pretended to be dissatisfied and snorted. He turned around and closed his eyes. Just now, he had already calculated the swing of the suspension bridge and the convergence of the array glyphs on the suspension bridge. As long as he threw the stones out, he would be able to break the 3 talisman arrays. At the most crucial moment, Withered Barbarian appeared, disrupting the rhythm in his mind. Now, he had no choice but to recalculate. Huey Meow Meow saw that Ku-man didn't leave, but seemed to be interested in Yang Tian. She didn't know what this old woman wanted to do. She had just relaxed, but now she was nervous again. The group of people from the Sacred Hall had almost killed Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. In Yang Tian's heart, he was filled with hatred for the Sacred Hall. Although he was now a cultivator in the illusion realm, Yang Tian could only suppress the hatred in his heart. He had long vowed that if he had the chance, he would destroy the Sacred Hall. He would let the officials who had set up the flame array have a taste of it. Yang Tian had long been trained to not show his emotions. Although he was filled with hatred, his expression and eyes didn't show it at all. Ku-man had stayed behind to see if Yang Tian could break the array glyphs on this level. If he could break the array glyphs on the 3rd level of the Llama clan at such a young age, his future in the Tao of Runes would be limitless. Not long ago, the Astral Temple had obtained Huey Chanchan, which meant that they had indirectly obtained a divine beast. This made Ku-man very unhappy. If they could find a rune genius here and bring him back to the Sacred Hall, they could at least make up for their loss. Under everyone's gaze, Yang Tian closed his eyes for a moment and then opened them. With a wave of his hand, he threw out the stone in his hand. Ding! The stone hit the wind chime on the bottom metal chain on the left side of the bridge and let out a crisp sound. Bang, bang, bang. Almost at the same time, the wind chimes on the metal chain exploded one after another. The array glyphs on the suspension bridge were formed by the runes on the wind chimes. Once the wind chimes were destroyed, the array glyphs would naturally cease to exist. Seeing the talisman array on the windchime bridge destroyed, Man couldn't help but be startled, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. She had seen the array glyphs on the bridge being broken before. Those people might have taken less time to prepare compared to Yang Tian, but they would not have been able to do it as easily as Yang Tian did. Yang Tian had only used a stone and casually threw it out, and the array glyphs were destroyed. He had done it so easily. Of course, Man did not know about Yang Tian's attainment in the Tao of Runes. Otherwise, he would have become suspicious again. Man did not care about the matters of the families in the Yen territory. Nice. Impressive. This is wonderful. When all the wind chimes on the bridge had exploded, there was a burst of cheers from the people on both sides of the bridge. The first level's array was the easiest. As long as one trained in the Tao of Runes for a dozen years, they would be able to break it. But the second level was different. Not only did it have 3 array glyphs, but the 3 array glyphs were connected to each other. When the speed of the airflow was not fixed, there were thousands of changes. To break this level, an average rune master would not be able to do it. Yang Tian ignored the cheers of the people around him. He did not have a smug expression on his face. With a calm and steady appearance, he stepped onto the wind chime bridge that no longer had any wind chimes and walked towards the other side. Huey Meow Meow immediately followed. In order to not let Man discover anything, Huey Meow Meow decided to speak less from now on. Otherwise, if Man heard her, Yang Tian would really be finished. Man's lips curled as he followed. When the onlookers saw that withered barbarian had crossed the bridge, they stepped onto the bridge one by one and followed him. These people became more and more excited. They wanted to see Yang Tian break through the third level. When Yang Tian crossed the wind chime bridge, a bell sounded from the Pullingwood Hall on the mountain peak. This was to remind the Pullingwood race that the array glyphs on the wind chime bridge had been broken. Only by breaking through this level would the Pullingwood race pay attention. When Yang Tian heard the bell, he knew what it meant. He could not help but smile. He was incomparably happy. All this while, Yang Tian did not have any talent in the Rune Tao. He had worked hard before. Unfortunately, the process of learning proved that he was mediocre in the Rune Tao. But it was different now. The process of breaking through these 2 levels made Yang Tian feel an indescribable carefree. After walking along the mountain path for more than 10 minutes, a wide platform appeared in front of him. On the platform there were 9 teleportation platforms. Each platform was shining with blue light and was in a state of teleportation. At the edge of the platform there was also a stone tablet. On it were the words 9 Formation Maze Platform and a few lines of smaller words. The first 2 levels were relatively violent. The carriers of the array glyphs were all destroyed by Yang Tian. And the third level's requirements were: firstly, one could not destroy any of the teleportation platforms. Secondly, one had to use the 9 platforms to teleport to the small path on the other side. On the small path, there was a switch for a rune mechanism. As long as one pressed it, the 9 platforms would be extinguished. At the end of the small path, a stone door would open. Yang Tian had seen this maze before. It was set up by the Flying Cloud High Priest. He did not expect to see it again here. Chapter 697. 2 chapters combined into one. The third stage was much more difficult than the second stage. 99% of talisman masters who wanted to pass this stage failed at this stage. If Yang Tian could pass this stage, he could at least be considered a senior talisman master. Standing in front of the 9 teleportation platforms, Yang Tian closed his eyes again. This was the first time Ku Man had seen such a method of cracking a talisman array. Standing in front of the talisman array, closing his eyes for a while and opening his eyes, he could easily crack the talisman array. Other talisman masters would not be like this. In order to crack a talisman array, they would have a set of special tools. The first step was to use rune tools to examine the composition of the talisman array's energy, its position, its strength, and so on. The second step was to deduce the way to crack the talisman array based on the information detected. The third step was to crack it. During this process, he might fail. If he failed, he would have to repeat the cracking process until the talisman array was cracked. When Yang Tian cracked the first 2 talisman arrays, he did not take out any tools to crack talisman arrays. He only used his 2 hands to crack the 2 talisman arrays. Bystanders who did not understand talisman arrays might not think much of it. But to Ku Man, this was simply a great surprise. Looking at Yang Tian's closed eyes, Ku Man could not help but laugh. If Yang Tian could crack the talisman array in front of her, she planned to bring Yang Tian to the Limitless Temple no matter what. At this time, in Yang Tian's mind, the rune energy diagram of the 9 teleportation platforms appeared. Each platform was divided into 9 rune energy lines, which were connected to the other 8 platforms and a point on the opposite side of the path. The line that connected to the path was faintly discernible. When the rune energy line of one platform connected to this point, the rune energy line of the other 8 platforms would disappear. The color of each rune energy line was constantly changing. In other words, the location of the 9 teleportation platforms was constantly changing. For example, if you stepped on the nearest teleportation platform, you would be teleported to the platform next to it. But if you stepped on it earlier or later, you would be teleported to another platform. If one did not find the pattern and rashly stepped onto the teleportation platform, they would be continuously teleported back and forth by the 9 platforms, unable to leave. In fact, this was also a type of trapping formation. This sort of trapping formation that was created using teleportation platforms was actually very simple to break. All one needed to do was to destroy them. However, there was a rule on the stone tablet that forbade the destruction of any of the teleportation platforms. With this rule, the difficulty of deciphering it had undoubtedly increased by countless times. Although Yang Tian could see the rune energy lines extending from the teleportation platform, he could not find a pattern, because there were simply too many changes. One of the teleportation platforms had at least 9 variations. The variations of the 9 teleportation platforms were 9 times 9, and then 9 times 9 with the computational ability of the human brain. It was impossible to find and remember the pattern. Yang Tian observed for more than 10 minutes, trying to remember the pattern of the changes. However, the more he tried to remember, the more his head hurt. He had no choice but to give up. Yang Tian could not do it, but the strange program could. This time, Yang Tian closed his eyes for a longer period of time, more than an hour. The spectators had long since become impatient, but with Ku Man standing to the side, they did not dare to speak. Many people could not help but think that Yang Tian would probably stop here. Even so, many people were extremely impressed with Yang Tian. At such a young age, he was able to break through 2 stages in a row. If he cultivated rune arts for a few more decades, or even centuries, his achievements would be limitless. There was a big difference between rune arts and cultivation. On the path of cultivation, if one did not have outstanding talent, they could make up for it with hard work and time. However, rune arts were different. It was not something that could be achieved with hard work. Often, a person's talent in rune arts could be seen from a young age. Yang Tian's performance could be said to be extremely talented in rune arts. Finally, Yang Tian opened his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Seeing the expression on Yang Tian's face, Ku Man could not help but open his eyes wide. At this time, Yang Tian finally moved. The crowd waited for more than an hour before they finally saw Yang Tian move. Yang Tian slowly walked toward the leftmost teleportation platform. His steps were very rhythmic, as if he was counting the time. The time taken for the first and second steps was almost the same. In this hour, the strange program had already found the pattern of the 9 teleportation platforms changes. As he walked, Yang Tian was calculating the time. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Some of the spectators began to count Yang Tian's step. Finally, Yang Tian stepped onto the teleportation platform. The 9 teleportation platforms were all in an active state. After Yang Tian stepped onto the platform, his figure suddenly disappeared. When Yang Tian reappeared, he was already on the opposite side of the path. There was a stone pillar to the side. This was the mechanism to close the 9-formation labyrinth platform. Yang Tian raised his hand and pressed it down. The moment the stone pillar moved, the 9 teleportation platforms were extinguished at the same time. Dong! Dong! After the 9-formation labyrinth platform was closed, 2 bell tolls sounded from the highest level of the pulling wood hall. Ku Man looked at Yang Tian at this time with a scorching gaze. He thought to himself, "This youth, I must bring him back." She was glad that there were no people from the other temples here at this time. Otherwise, she would have to fight with him again. Ku Man didn't want to come on this trip, but he didn't expect to meet such a rune genius. To him, this trip was too worth it. Ku Man wanted to bring Yang Tian back to the Everlasting Temple, but he didn't expect that this youth named Mu Yi was Yang Tian. He wondered what her expression would be after she found out Yang Tian's true identity. 2 bell tolls sounded from the Pullingwood Hall, finally attracting the attention of the Pullingwood Patriarch. Someone actually passed the 3rd stage. In the Pullingwood Hall, a skinny old man sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. At this time, a series of footsteps sounded, and 12 old men walked into the hall. These people were the elders of the Pullingwood tribe, and their attainments in runes were extremely high. The 12 of them were dressed in black robes with white hair. After entering, they bowed to the patriarch and then sat down cross-legged. This was the way the Pullingwood tribe received guests. If someone could break 3 rune formations in half a day, the elders would appear and wait here. This kind of thing had happened several times in the past few hundred years. However, after 2 bell tolls, there were no more bell tolls, and the elders could only leave helplessly. Yang Tian broke 3 rune formations in a row, and 2 bell tolls sounded from the Pullingwood Hall. The bell tolls echoed throughout the entire Pullingwood Mountain. Although it didn't sound very loud, it attracted the attention of many people. Especially the cultivators who specialized in runes. Almost all of them knew the meaning of the 2 bell tolls on Pullingwood Mountain. Therefore, these people, whether they had just returned from far away or were preparing to leave through the teleportation formation on Pullingwood Mountain, all of them gathered at the top of the mountain. This kind of situation had happened many times, and the Pullingwood tribe had a way to deal with it. The 4th stage was in a square. This square could hold tens of thousands of people. The 4th stage's rune formation didn't need such a large space. The reason why it was so spacious was to prepare for the people who were watching the show. Otherwise, when so many cultivators were crowded together, they would be more angry, and it was inevitable that there would be fighting. When the space was spacious, the people would be spread out, and this problem wouldn't exist. In less than 5 minutes, thousands of people had gathered in the square. Being surrounded by so many people, Yang Tian's face still maintained a calm expression, and this made Ku Man even more satisfied with Yang Tian. She felt that at least when she was Yang Tian's age, she wouldn't be able to remain calm when being stared at for doing such a thing. Yang Tian ignored the others. Even if there were 10 times more people, it had nothing to do with him. Yang Tian had seen this kind of scene many times. Maze Killing Formation. The 4th rune formation was called the Maze Killing Formation, and it was built in the middle of the square. It was made up of hundreds of stone pillars that were as thick as a person's thigh and about a meter above the ground. The stone pillars were carved with runes of different colors. If one looked at it from the sky, they would see that the hundreds of stone pillars formed a spiral pattern. Compared to the third stage's 9 formation maze platform, the maze-killing formation was more difficult to break. The rune formations of the first 3 stages were defensive rune formations, and wouldn't attack the person who broke the formation. However, the maze-killing formation was different. Just from its name, one could tell that it was both a maze formation and a killing formation. The stone tablet beside it reminded the person who broke the formation that if they were trapped in the formation and felt that they couldn't handle it, they could raise their hands, and the maze-killing formation would be dispelled. Of course, this was tantamount to admitting defeat. Just like the previous 3 times, Yang Tian stood outside the formation, closed his eyes, and felt the rune energy of this rune formation. In his mind, the rune energy of this rune formation appeared again. There were hundreds of stone pillars, and each of them had countless tiny lines of rune energy extending from them. They were tangled together without any pattern, and looked like a colorful mess. At the same time, these energy lines were also changing. Not only the color, but even the lines were moving. So many. The strange program told Yang Tian that these energy lines were actually a type of concealment energy lines, to prevent the person who broke the formation from seeing the real rune energy lines that made up the formation. Since he couldn't see it from the outside, he could only enter the formation. Yang Tian closed his eyes and opened them again in less than 5 minutes. Yang Tian gave a look to the little blue dragon on his shoulder. The little blue dragon understood Yang Tian's meaning and immediately jumped down from Yang Tian's shoulder, squatting beside Huey Meow Meow. Breaking this rune formation required a risk, and Yang Tian didn't want the little blue dragon to be in danger. Also, once he was trapped in the formation, if he and the little blue dragon were separated by the rune formation, it would be even more troublesome. Ah, so fast. Yes. Is this rune formation simpler than the previous one? Impossible. Otherwise, this 4th stage would have been passed by many people. After passing the previous 3 stages, everyone thought that Yang Tian would know the way to break the formation as soon as he closed and opened his eyes. That was why there were such discussions. In the crowd, an old man with a white beard stroked his long beard and chuckled. Because this rune formation can only be broken by going inside. The outside of the rune formation is like a shell. The person who designed this rune formation is really amazing. As soon as the old man finished speaking, someone beside him asked, "How do you know?" The old man smiled. "Because I once broke through this rune formation and almost died inside. Even now, I don't have complete confidence. It's too amazing. You can't break it from the outside, but once you enter the formation, you will be attacked by the rune formation. There is no time to break it." After the little blue dragon left, Yang Tian stepped forward and walked into the stone pillar without hesitation. In everyone's eyes, Yang Tian disappeared after entering the stone pillar. With the naked eye, the situation inside the rune formation could not be seen. This was also the power of this rune formation. If these stone pillars were set up very secretly, cultivators who did not understand the runes would not even know how they died when they broke in. After Yang Tian stepped through the gap between 2 stone pillars, the scene in front of him changed. The light disappeared, the air disappeared, he could not breathe, and he could not even see his fingers. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the sound of wind was heard. A sharp metal arrow was shot toward Yang Tian. Yang Tian had mental power and was not affected by light. He tilted his head and dodged the metal arrow. The situation at the periphery appeared clearly in his mind. What surprised Yang Tian was that by using his mental power, he could see the stone pillars around him. These stone pillars were arranged in the same way as the ones he saw outside the formation. To put it bluntly, this rune formation was actually an illusion formation. The illusion formation mainly confused people through their senses. Yang Tian's 5 senses were affected by the illusion formation. Even so, his mental power was not affected by the rune's energy. Or rather, it had an extremely small effect on his mental power. There were many metal arrows, and Yang Tian kept dodging them. He had to avoid them. Although it was an illusion formation, there was reality in the illusion. The metal arrows were fake and not real metal, but they were formed by rune's energy, and their destructive power was greater than that of real metal arrows. Since he could see the stone pillars, if he destroyed one of them, the rune formation would naturally be broken. Despite that, Yang Tian was not willing to do that. He wanted to use runes to break the rune formation. If not, what was the point of this? As Yang Tian kept dodging, he realized that his mental power seemed to have undergone a certain change. At the very least, before he possessed a new physical body, his mental power could not clearly see the carrier that formed the rune formation in the illusion formation. The energy in a healthy person's body was maintained in a state of balance. When one of the energies changed, the other would change as well. If there was an imbalance, the person would fall ill and die. The change in his mental power was definitely due to the peculiar program. Rune information was also a type of energy. When this energy entered Yang Tian's body, the other energies in Yang Tian's body would also be affected and change. Of course, this was only Yang Tian's guess. I think we can use a new method of cooperation, the peculiar program suddenly said while Yang Tian was dodging rapidly. What method? Yang Tian immediately asked. The peculiar program said, previously I completely controlled your body. Now I'll change it to partial control. Will that work? Yang Tian asked. The movements of every part of a person's body were controlled by the brain. To put it bluntly, the peculiar program's intention was to take over a part of Yang Tian's nervous system in his brain to achieve a state where they were in each other. This was equivalent to a preliminary fusion between Yang Tian and the peculiar program. After understanding this point, Yang Tian began to worry. He and the peculiar program were two different life forms. Their consciousnesses would definitely not be able to truly fuse together. He did not have to worry that he would become another person after the fusion. Yang Tian was worried that if an accident happened, his consciousness would be damaged. If his physical body was injured, it could be healed. If his consciousness was damaged, he would not know what to do. The relationship between a person's consciousness and their physical body was equivalent to the relationship between a computer's operating system and the host computer. A computer without an operating system was no different from a piece of scrap metal. Chapter 698. Along the way, when had he not faced danger after danger to achieve what he had now? Yang Tian only hesitated for a moment before agreeing to the strange program's suggestion. Seeing that Yang Tian had agreed, the strange program said, "For you, there are great benefits. From the perspective of runes, your body is now more excellent than before. Perhaps in this process, your body will have the same abilities as mine. Stop talking nonsense, let's begin." The number of metal arrows attacking him was increasing, and their speed was also increasing. Yang Tian felt that he could not take it anymore and shouted in his mind. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Tian felt a sharp pain in his head. It almost made him lose control of his movements and get hit by a few metal arrows. Fortunately, Yang Tian endured it and dodged by a hair's breadth. One of the metal arrows even scratched his sleeve. This attack was not illusory. After the sharp pain, Yang Tian felt that there was something more in his brain. It was as if the information in the depths of his memory had suddenly been awakened, and there was a feeling of enlightenment. Then, Yang Tian felt a numbing sensation throughout his body. His hands were lifted up uncontrollably. Boom! Then, Yang Tian's head roared, and he felt the world spinning around him. He almost fainted. Fortunately, he gritted his teeth and held on. At this time, the strange program had penetrated deep into his brain and connected with his consciousness. At this time, even if Yang Tian did not want to, the strange program could affect his movements. Compared to the previous method of control, the strange program was more active. Yang Tian did not stop the strange program from fusing with his consciousness, although he instinctively felt that it was dangerous. The process of fusion still had some effect on Yang Tian's movement. Yang Tian's body was hit by 2 metal arrows in succession, leaving a hole in his left shoulder and right arm. This kind of injury was only a minor injury to Yang Tian. His body's strong recovery ability allowed him to close the wound immediately after bleeding a little. Previously, the strange program, with Yang Tian's permission, had controlled Yang Tian's body countless times to complete the process of activating rune energy. With this experience as a foundation, the fusion process was not as complicated as Yang Tian had imagined. It was completed quickly. Yang Tian controlled his body and leaped up. His figure flashed as he dodged the metal arrows that were flying towards him at high speed. Yang Tian's hands, controlled by the strange program, were constantly making all kinds of movements at an extremely fast speed. Even cultivators of the same level could not see the movements of his hands at this time. In the past, Yang Tian needed a quiet environment to activate the rune energy with his hands, but it was different now. During the process of activating the rune, Yang Tian was also able to control his hands. For example, when he realized that he couldn't dodge a metal arrow, he would raise his hand and slap it away. Then, he would put his hand down and continue the unfinished process of activating the rune's energy. If talisman masters were to see this, they would definitely be horrified. Whether it was the use of hand gestures or the method of inscribing runes to activate rune energy, it was a delicate process. One had to be very focused. If one was not careful, they would fail. There was no such thing as multitasking. Yang Tian's deciphering process would definitely subvert their understanding. Yang Tian's consciousness and the strange program fused together. The speed of transmitting information to each other was many times faster. This made the deciphering process many times faster. Done a few minutes later, Yang Tian knew that the strange program had completed the process of activating rune energy, even without the strange program's reminder. In an instant, Yang Tian put his hands together. In his mind, the energy lines that made up this rune array appeared. Unlike what he had seen outside, in the array, the energy lines were all real. The number was at least 10 times less. After the fusion, the strange program's calculation speed was also much faster. When the image of the rune energy lines appeared in Yang Tian's mind, the strange program had already calculated the deciphering method based on the results of its observation. Yang Tian's hands moved quickly again. A few minutes later, Yang Tian suddenly stopped. He put his hands together in front of his chest as if he was performing a Buddhist ritual. At the same time, he shouted loudly. Powerful rune energy emitted from his hands. The rune energy lines that made up the maze-killing array all broke with a sound. This extremely complicated rune array was deciphered just like that. It did not even have the chance to activate any other means of attack. Prung prung prung, in everyone's eyes, Yang Tian's figure suddenly appeared. The place where he appeared was the center of the stone pillars. The hundreds of stone pillars that surrounded him exploded one after another. In less than a minute, all the stone pillars were destroyed. Even if they did not understand runes, everyone knew that Yang Tian had deciphered this rune array. Dong dong dong, as soon as the 4th rune array was broken, the bell in the Pullingwood Hall rang 3 times in succession. In the hall, the Pullingwood clan's patriarch and the 12 elders all smiled. In their eyes, there was a glimmer of excitement. There were still 2 more rune arrays. If someone could decipher them, they might be able to fulfill their wish. Rumble. Yang Tian let out a long breath. Just as he was about to walk out of the stone pillars that were made up of half of the stone pillars, suddenly, the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. Yang Tian frowned and immediately left the trembling area. In the midst of the rumbling sound, a circular stone platform slowly rose from the center of the square. The stone platform was made of bluestone. It was circular in shape and had a diameter of about 15 meters. No one knew how long it had existed. The runes engraved around it had become somewhat blurry. This bluestone was very hard. Under the grinding of time, it had also changed. The surface had become bumpy. After rising to about 3 meters, the stone platform finally stopped. A moment later, a blue light lit up on top of it. It turned out that this was a teleportation array. The teleportation array that led to the next stage. Seeing that Yang Tian had deciphered the rune array of the Pullingwood clan, the little blue dragon excitedly jumped onto Yang Tian's shoulder. Yang Tian raised his hand and patted the little blue dragon's head before jumping onto the teleportation array. Everyone looked at Yang Tian as if they were looking at a monster. This was especially true for the cultivators who understood runes. In just a short period of time, this extremely difficult rune array had been destroyed by Yang Tian. Actually, what was shocking was not the speed at which he deciphered these rune arrays, but his current age. If Yang Zai was an old man, they might not be so surprised. The more powerful Yang Tian was in runes, the happier Ku Man was. There were a total of 6 rune arrays on Pullingwood Mountain. Each rune array was more complex than the last. Ku Man was a minister of the Everlasting Temple and knew some things that the outside world did not. In fact, these 6 rune arrays were used by the Pullingwood clan to find talent. If one could decipher these 6 rune arrays, they would be qualified to know some secrets about Pullingwood Mountain that the outside world did not know. Seeing Yang Tian break through 4 runes in a row, Ku Man not only paid more attention to Yang Tian, he also looked forward to it. Over the countless years, the 6 rune arrays of the Pullingwood clan had been successfully deciphered by many rune Dao geniuses. However, in the end, they were all blocked outside a natural rune array. It was said that if one entered this natural rune array, they would be able to obtain the secrets of the entire world. Of course, this was only a legend because until now, no one had been able to decipher this natural rune array. Yang Tian's figure quickly disappeared from the teleportation array. Huey Meow Meow and Ku Man naturally followed behind him. At this moment, no one could stop their curiosity as they all rushed towards the teleportation array. They were anxious to reach the 5th rune array as they wanted to see how Yang Tian would decipher the rune array of the 5th rune array. When Yang Tian reappeared, he was in a huge cave. Based on his senses, Yang Tian discovered that he had been teleported to the bottom of Pullingwood Mountain. The cave was very spacious and in front of him was a bottomless abyss. On the other side of the abyss was a cave. Countless irregularly shaped rocks with rune arrays carved on them floated up and down. This rune array was called the 10,000 Rock Cave. To reach the other side, one had to step on the floating rock. The time required to pass. Yang Tian estimated that it would take no more than 10 minutes. If the time was exceeded, all the floating rocks would explode. Without these floating rocks, even a Destiny Enlightenment cultivator would be enveloped by the powerful suction force of the abyss and fall into the bottomless abyss, never to come out again. To reach the cave on the other side and enter the next rune array, one had to step on the rocks that were carved with runes. The first rune array tested the challenger's basic skills in the Tao of runes. The second rune array tested the challenger's mastery of the rune array's energy attribute. Cultivators who cultivated only rune energy would find it very difficult to pass this rune array. The third rune array tested the challenger's calculation ability. If one did not have a strong calculation ability, one could only rely on long-range energy to pass the rune array. The fourth rune array tested the challenger's speed in activating runes. If one's reaction was slow, they would not have the chance to decipher this rune array. The fifth rune array tested the challenger's mental fortitude. Because if one failed, only death would await them. Then what about the sixth rune array? Yang Tian guessed that it was most likely a comprehensive ability in the Tao of Runes. After the fourth rune array was deciphered, the strange program and Yang Tian's consciousness separated. The thing that Yang Tian was worried about did not happen. He was still himself, and the strange program was still the strange program. Just as the strange program had said, Yang Tian had obtained a huge benefit. More rune information appeared in his mind. In the future, Yang Tian would cooperate with the strange program more. Even if the strange program left Yang Tian would at least be able to use most of its abilities. In his excitement, Yang Tian had a strange premonition, a premonition of the future. But when he thought about it carefully, he realized that it was hazy. When this feeling appeared, Yang Tian pondered over it carefully. Since he did not gain anything, he gave up. Let's try again. Yang Tian smiled as he looked at the countless floating rocks covered in runes in front of him. Okay. The strange program immediately agreed. The first fusion had caused Yang Tian a short period of discomfort. The second time was much easier. This time, Yang Tian only felt a slight dizziness in his head before the fusion process was completed. Yang Tian's body moved and he stepped onto a floating rock closest to him. After the fusion, Yang Tian could see the rune arrays on the stone clearly. There was a delicate rune array on every floating piece of rock. The rune arrays on the thousands of stones were completely different. Some were made of space runes, some were made of time runes, some were made of life runes, and some were made of the 5 elements runes. These rune arrays were trapping arrays. At the same time, they could prevent the surrounding stones from colliding. This rune array did not just test the challenger's mental fortitude. It also tested the challenger's comprehensive ability in the Tao of Runes. When Yang Tian moved, Hui Miao Miao had just appeared. Then, it was Ku Man's turn. The first stone that Yang Tian stepped onto was a time rune array. This rune array changed the flow of time. 1 minute inside the rune array was actually 2 minutes outside. However, the moment Yang Tian stepped onto this rune array, the rune array on the stone was cracked by him in less than 10 seconds. In other words, Yang Tian had cracked this rune array in about 5 seconds. Once the rune array was cracked, Yang Tian rushed to the next stone. In the eyes of Hui Miao Miao, Ku Man, and the others, Yang Tian did not stay on each floating stone for more than 2 breaths of time. In less than 5 minutes, Yang Tian had covered more than half the distance. His speed of cracking the rune array was getting faster and faster. In less than 10 minutes, Yang Tian had jumped to the entrance of the cave on the other side. There was also a pillar-shaped rune switch at the entrance of the cave. Yang Tian pressed it. The moment Yang Tian pressed it, the floating stones suddenly started to gather. Soon, they formed a sturdy stone bridge. This was really a magical process. Even the process of the machinery race using AI to control the assembly of precise components was not as magical as this. Yang Tian cracked this round very quickly. This shocked the old patriarch and elders of the Lamu tribe. They were even more excited. Even so, they still sat cross-legged in the hall and waited patiently. The bell of the Lamu hall rang 4 times. Once the stone bridge was formed, Hui Miao Miao ran towards Yang Tian. The more powerful Yang Tian was, the more proud she was. After all, Yang Tian was her man. Yang Tian did not enter the cave, because the cave was the 6th round. This round was called Chaos. There was only one word carved on the stone tablet at the entrance of the cave. There was no other explanation. What did this mean? Yang Tian did not understand. It seemed that he could only find out after entering the array. The stone bridge was sturdy and wide. It could carry tens of thousands of people without any problem. Yang Tian stood at the entrance of the cave not to wait for Hui Miao Miao, but because he needed to separate from the strange program after cracking the array. Yang Tian did not want to be merged for a long time. After a long time, there might be unexpected changes. The strange program also agreed. After separating and resting for a few minutes, Yang Tian stepped into the cave. Entering the cave also meant that Yang Tian had entered the talisman array called Chaos. Actually, the sixth round was also an illusion array. The moment Yang Tian entered, the scene before him changed. Countless chaotic scenes appeared before Yang Tian's eyes. The first scene was actually the Wei Kong warship breaking through space and appearing in this world. When the people of this world saw the Wei Kong warship, they might think it was just an ordinary spaceship. However, when Yang Tian saw it, his eyes widened. After coming to this world, Yang Tian still did not know about Goddess Shi Chun and the others. He did not know where they had gone. Yang Tian had thought about this before. He guessed that Goddess Shi Chun and the others might not have appeared in the Yin domain. At this time, Yang Tian finally knew where they were. The domain of frost. That's right, the domain of frost. Although the scene only appeared for an instant, Yang Tian could see that it was a world of ice and snow. Only the domain of frost was like this. After coming to this world, he did not see Goddess Shi Chun and the others. The undead girl, Yuanxi, who came with Yang Tian, had also left him. This made Yang Tian feel a little lonely. If not for the little blue dragon by his side, this feeling of loneliness might have been even stronger. Chapter 699. After the picture disappeared, Yang Tian was puzzled. He did not understand why such a picture appeared in front of him. He was sure that this picture must be real and not a scene created by the illusory matrix using his memory. Because Yang Tian had never seen such a situation before, after the picture disappeared, the surrounding light dimmed and a blurry red dot appeared in front of him. Seeing this red dot, Yang Tian frowned and walked over carefully with slow step. As he got closer and closer, the red dot became bigger and bigger and turned into a big red ball. Anything could happen in the glyph matrix. Yang Tian was very careful and stopped dozens of meters away from the red ball. This red ball was about 1 meter in diameter, and Yang Tian felt that it was very familiar. After thinking about it, Yang Tian finally understood that this red ball was too similar to the blood fetus that gave birth to his body. Pung! As soon as this thought appeared, the red ball suddenly exploded and a child, who looked exactly like Yang Tian, jumped out of it. The child's appearance was exactly the same as Yang Tian's, even the clothes he was wearing were exactly the same. Not only that, this child who looked exactly like Yang Tian had another little blue dragon lying on his shoulder. This must be an illusion. Yang Tian could not help but laugh, and the little blue dragon on his shoulder saw the other little blue dragon, and its eyes widened in surprise. Although they were illusions, this man and dragon exuded a breath of life, as if they were alive. Seeing the real Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, the eyes of the child, who had just come out of the red ball and Xiao Long on his shoulder, were full of surprise. But immediately, their eyes were filled with anger. There was a breath of life. Could it be a copy? Yang Tian thought to himself. The universe was extremely vast, and anything could happen. Yang Tian had once heard that there was a star field that was the mirror image of another star field. The life forms and things that happened in the two star fields were exactly the same. Later, after continuous human exploration, it was finally discovered that the formation of the mirror galaxy was actually caused by the distortion and bifurcation of space and time. The events that happened in the two galaxies were actually about 2 seconds apart. In order to make the mirror galaxy disappear, humans destroyed a star because it was the existence of this star that caused the space and time of the entire galaxy to change. Unfortunately, the mirror galaxy was destroyed. Otherwise, Yang Tian would definitely go and see it for himself. And now, were the child and the little azure dragon, who looked exactly like him, also the same kind of existence? Seeing the other party's expression, Yang Tian knew that it was not. Whoosh! Suddenly, the little blue dragon on the child's shoulder moved and charged toward Yang Tian. The little blue dragon on Yang Tian's shoulder was already prepared for battle. As soon as the fake little blue dragon moved, it charged forward as well. Bang! The two little blue dragons met in the air and collided with a muffled sound. The fake was just a fake. It was not a match for the real little blue dragon. After the collision, it disappeared without a trace. Xiao Long. When the boy saw that his little blue had died, he let out a shrill cry. His hands suddenly turned into dragon claws. With a move, he charged toward Yang Tian. During this process, a powerful energy fluctuation erupted from the little boy's body. However, his cultivation was not as high as Yang Tian's. He was only at returnance. There was no need for Yang Tian to do anything. The little blue dragon moved. It opened its mouth and spat out a golden dragon's flame at the boy. Roar! The child was enveloped by the golden dragon's flame. Suddenly, a beastly roar rang out from within the flame. Immediately after, a strange-looking exotic beast rushed out of the dragon flames. It was a strange beast that was shaped like a cat. It had a pair of fleshy wings on its back and a furry triangular head with a single red eye on its forehead. After charging out of the flame, the strange beast's single eye shone with a vicious light. With a flap of its wings, it charged toward the little blue dragon. It moved extremely quickly. Yang Tian suddenly understood when he saw the strange beast. It was probably a strange beast that could use illusions. Bang! No matter how vicious the strange beast was, it was not the little blue dragon's opponent. With a swing of the little blue dragon's tail, the strange beast slammed into the ground like a rock. Its body exploded and red liquid splattered everywhere. At that moment, the little blue dragon and Yang Tian used their mental strength to block the red liquid so that it would not splash on them. Something strange happened once again. After the red liquid landed on the ground, it actually turned into a swarm of red worms. It seemed like countless tiny red worms had gathered together and were constantly wriggling. Boom! The little blue dragon vigilantly spat out another dragon's flame, enveloping all the red worms. With a series of screeching sounds, countless worms were turned into black sludge within the golden dragon's flame. They did not even have the time to transform. It was the first time Yang Tian had seen something like a beast turning into a worm. At this moment, he finally understood why this trial was called chaotic. This was far too chaotic. Rustle! After the countless red worms were destroyed, there was a sudden rustling sound in the cave. It sounded like countless worms crawling on the ground. The direction where the sound came from was dark, so Yang Tian could not see it. He and the little blue dragon looked at each other and slowly retreated. After about 10 seconds, Yang Tian opened his eyes wide and shook his head vigorously. He could not help but rub his eyes. There were things crawling toward him, and there were a lot of them. They were not strange beasts, nor were they worms. They were runes. That's right, runes. Countless strange runes. Each one of them seemed to be alive as they flowed along the cave walls and rushed toward Yang Tian. Boom! The little blue dragon spat out another dragon's flame. Something strange happened. After the dragon's flame disappeared, some of the runes disappeared, but some of the runes grew in size. The runes that disappeared were the runes of life and the runes of water, while the runes that grew in size were the runes of fire. Yang Tian suddenly felt like he was going crazy. He had never heard or seen a rune that was alive. Whoosh boom! Seeing that the dragon's flame was useless, the little blue dragon unleashed a powerful electric current and struck the cave walls. Where the electric current struck, the runes splashed everywhere. Just like last time, some of the runes disappeared and some of the runes grew in size. What should he do? Yang Tian was very distressed. There were many runes that appeared and there were all kinds of runes. They corresponded to all kinds of energy. If one part of them was destroyed, the other part would grow in size. Just when Yang Tian did not know what to do, The voice of the strange program suddenly rang in Yang Tian's mind. Yang Tian, quick! Eat them, they are very nutritious. What? Yang Tian was shocked. These things, could they be eaten? How could they be eaten? Chapter 700. In the Pullingwood Hall, the Patriarch and the 12 elders all looked towards a corner outside the hall. There was a clock hanging there. Starting from the second stage, as long as the formation was broken, the clock would automatically ring. The sixth stage is called chaos, and the difficulty can be changed at will. If one is lucky, the difficulty of breaking it will be easier than the second stage. On the contrary, the difficulty is probably no less than breaking a natural formation. In the breeze, the clock, which was similar in shape to the wind chimes on the wind bell bridge, but many times larger, was swaying. An elder looked at it for a long time and muttered to himself. Another person said, the ancestor of the Pullingwood tribe, who called himself the Talisman Master, accidentally found this place and set up the sixth stage. Then he entered the natural formation space and was gone for countless years. According to the ancestor, the sixth stage is a test of luck, but luck is elusive and even the gods cannot detect it. I don't know if this person can pass this stage. The two people spoke, breaking the silence. After one person finished speaking, the other person sighed and said, "We are all old. I hope this person can break the sixth stage and not disappoint us again. We can't wait. I don't know if the Talisman Master is still alive. He has not returned. If the Talisman Master had not suddenly left, our Pullingwood tribe would definitely be able to surpass the Divine Temple and not be trapped on this Pullingwood mountain." Shut up. When an elder mentioned the Divine Temple, the Patriarch frowned and shouted in a deep voice. The elder who spoke shut up and smiled embarrassedly. Just now, he mentioned the taboo of the Pullingwood tribe. When the Pullingwood tribe was defeated by the Divine Temple, a deep enmity was formed, and it took thousands of years to resolve the enmity. Because the Pullingwood tribe knew that they were no match for the Divine Temple. If they did not want to be exterminated, they should never mention the past. The hall fell silent once more. These runes, what are they? Yang Tian asked in his mind as he retreated. The strange program said, "These runes remind me of something. It seems that I have eaten them before I awakened." The strange program's words surprised Yang Tian, and he thought, could it be that this is the process of the Talisman Master creating the rune program? The Talisman Master was a genius. He used a special method to create a programmed life form made of runes. The process of creation was unknown and incomprehensible. With the disappearance of the Rune Master, the original rune program was destroyed. Later generations of rune geniuses had also made countless attempts to create an intelligent program using runes, just like the Rune Master, but without a doubt they had all failed. Some people even spent their entire lives without being able to enter the door. The Talisman Master must have thought of a special method, a method that others would never know. There were also people who guessed that the Talisman Master was not a human from this world, but from another world. Countless runes surged towards him, but Yang Tian did not know if these runes would harm him. He kept retreating, but soon, a rustling sound could be heard behind him. How could he eat these runes? After Yang Tian asked the strange program, it did not answer for a long time. Soon, Yang Tian discovered a problem. Countless runes surged from the cave walls, and there were no runes in the air. When countless runes surged from behind him, Yang Tian had no choice but to fly into the air, and countless runes leaped over him along the cave walls. Yang Tian had never heard of mental power runes. Even if there were rune arrays that could affect one's mind, they were achieved through other energies. To prevent hidden runes from being in the air, Yang Tian used his mental power to surround himself and the little blue dragon. Whether it was the runes that came from the front or the back, they seemed to be densely packed, but each rune was separated by a certain distance, unlike crawling insects that would collide with each other. However, when the runes from the front and the back met, they crashed into each other like two floodwaters. Boom! Whoosh! Whoosh! Poof! Countless strange sounds were heard. There were only sounds, but there were no shock waves or airflows caused by explosions. Every time a strange sound was heard, a large number of runes disappeared. They were like water meeting fire. This situation was really strange. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, who were floating in the air, watched all this with wide eyes. "I'm about to know," after an unknown amount of time, the strange program's voice suddenly sounded in Yang Tian's mind. "I'm about to know." It seemed that the strange program's memory had not fully recovered. This was the first time the strange program was so excited to tell Yang Tian something that seemed unreliable. At the same time, it also meant that the strange program had become more human and had its own emotions. Seeing these moving runes, the strange program seemed to be very excited. The runes kept colliding and disappearing, but Yang Tian soon discovered that some of the runes did not disappear. Instead, they survived and became bigger than before. Yang Tian felt like he was in an absurd dream. Humans used runes to form words. Who had seen these words crawling all over the ground? The bigger runes were more strong than the smaller ones. Perhaps they had more power. When they collided with other runes, they absorbed the energy. Not only did they become bigger, but their shape also changed, becoming a different kind of rune. These runes did not have intelligence, but as they kept colliding, the bigger runes seemed to have intelligence. Originally, these runes collided casually, but the bigger runes actually had a sense of avoidance. They would avoid anything that had the opposite energy. They would pounce on the runes that could prevent them from being injured and could directly devour them. In the cave, there were more and more runes that were getting bigger. Would these runes cause harm to the human body? Seeing the countless runes crawling on the cave, and the rocks that formed the cave did not change, Yang Tian had this thought. If these runes would not hurt him, he could capture one of them and observe it closely. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, Yang Tian could not help but laugh. He spotted a slow-moving interspatial rune and raised his hand to grab it. The rune immediately flew into his hand. To avoid being hurt by the rune, Yang Tian used his mental power. His entire hand was wrapped in his mental power, so the rune that he grabbed did not actually come into contact with Yang Tian's hand. Yang Tian's mental power was connected to his consciousness. When he grabbed the rune, Yang Tian widened his eyes. That was because those runes were actually made of countless tiny particles made of some unknown material. Furthermore, there was a rune on each of those tiny particles. It was a wonderful structure. There were runes on the runes. Chapter 701. If the large runes were the human body, the small particles would be the cells that made up the large runes. The spatial rune that Yang Tian grabbed was about half the size of a palm. It was flat and looked like it was cut out of a thick piece of cardboard, and it did not have any organs such as feet for walking. Although it could move, it did not have any aura of life, and could only be considered as a machine. Yang Tian was about to use his mental power to penetrate the small particles that made up the rune to look at their internal structure when it suddenly dispersed. The space around Yang Tian's palm fluctuated. Spatial annihilation. After the rune dispersed, it caused spatial annihilation. However, the range was very small and it just covered Yang Tian's palm. Fortunately, Yang Tian wrapped his palm with his mental power and pulled it away in time. The spatial annihilation did not last long, or his palm would have been destroyed. Yang Tian could not help but be shocked by this situation. If the rune was a few dozen times larger and dispersed, it would cause spatial annihilation. That would be too terrifying. The strange program asked Yang Tian to swallow the runes, but he did not expect them to be so dangerous. Were they so easy to swallow? Although these runes were very dangerous, Yang Tian did not give up on understanding these runes. He glanced at the densely packed runes below him, and with a grab, a rune used to ignite flames was sucked into his hand. This rune was even more unruly than the spatial rune earlier. As soon as Yang Tian grabbed it, it dispersed and turned into a ball of high-temperature flame. Although the flame was very hot, it could not hurt Yang Tian. This time, Yang Tian was even more interested in the runes. He glanced at the wall next to him and absorbed a rune that activated water power. Just like before, the rune turned into a pool of water as soon as it fell into Yang Tian's hand, and it flowed out between Yang Tian's fingers. This time, Yang Tian did not even use his mental power. Different types of power would cause different amounts of damage. Some runes wouldn't even harm the human body. After grabbing 3 runes in a row, Yang Tian stopped. It would take some time to observe the detailed structure of these runes. However, apart from the first spatial rune that stayed in Yang Tian's hand for a short while, the other 2 runes disappeared the moment they touched Yang Tian's hand. How could he make these runes stay in his hand for a long time? Yang Tian began to ponder. At this moment, a very large spatial rune appeared where he was standing. It was 1 meter long and wide. The bigger the rune, the smarter it was. Perhaps it had sensed that Yang Tian would harm it, so it stayed far away from Yang Tian and didn't approach him. As soon as the surrounding runes appeared, they were attracted by its body and turned into its own energy, causing its body to become even bigger. If such a large spatial rune was destroyed, the space it formed would be annihilated, and the range would be unimaginably large. Yang Tian did not dare to provoke it. Turning around, Yang Tian flew into the depths of the cave. Countless runes first appeared from that direction. I got it. At this moment, the strange program's voice was heard. Phew, the strange program finally remembered and told him the method it had thought of. Yang Tian could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Next, Yang Tian fused with the strange program again. Under the strange program's control, Yang Tian's hands moved quickly. Yang Tian's current movements were much larger than when he was making hand seals previously. Not only were his fingers, palms, wrists, but his entire arm was moving as well. Return. After the rune formation was completed, Yang Tian called out softly. Under him, a translucent, circular rune formation appeared. As soon as this formation appeared, the surrounding runes quickly gathered like iron filings attracted by a magnet. The formation's suction force sucked all the surrounding runes into the formation. Soon, countless particles of cells rushed out of the formation. The strange program had already told Yang Tian that these tiny particles full of runes could be directly absorbed by living things because they were formed from the corresponding energy. Yang Tian did not need to deliberately absorb these energies. The runes turned into particles and rushed toward Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. At this time, the rune program also appeared from the insectoid brain pendant. As soon as the rune particles came into contact with Yang Tian and the little blue dragon's bodies, they immediately soaked into Yang Tian and the little blue dragon's bodies at a strange speed. This is really comfortable. When the rune particles came into contact with their bodies, they felt numb, as if they were being massaged by these tiny particles. Yang Tian felt the same way, and so did the little blue dragon. Its eyes were filled with an intoxicated expression. It seemed that it was even more comfortable than Yang Tian. As for how the rune program felt, Yang Tian did not know. However, Yang Tian soon discovered that the strange program had changed. It was originally a shadow in the shape of the little blue dragon, but after absorbing a large number of rune particles, only a portion of these particles disappeared. The rest began to stick to the shadow. More and more runes rushed over. Fortunately, the strange program thought of a way to absorb these runes in time. Otherwise, when these large runes became even larger, the formation would not be able to turn them into particles. There were many runes, but there was a limit. Of course, the speed at which they were produced could not compare to the speed at which they were destroyed. In less than half an hour, at least 100 million runes had been absorbed by the formation. The runes that rushed out became fewer and fewer until they finally disappeared. Disperse, no more runes appeared. Yang Tian shouted softly, and the formation below him disappeared. Yang Tian slowly landed on the ground and let out a long breath. At this time, the little blue dragon transformed by the strange program actually had a physical body. Other than its body being slightly darker than the little blue dragon's, it looked almost exactly the same as the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon did not care about the illusory little blue dragon, but this time it was different. The strange program was tantamount to violating the little blue dragon's image right. Of course, the little blue dragon was unhappy. Seeing the little blue dragon's fierce eyes, the strange program knew that the little blue dragon was dissatisfied. Its entire body suddenly dispersed, as if it was made of sand, and turned into a ball of tiny gray particles. Then, it changed shape and became a little green bird. Looking at the shrunken version of the green bird, the little blue dragon was still unhappy. The strange program had no choice but to turn into a little turtle and hover in the air. The little blue dragon finally stopped looking at it with dissatisfaction. Using this method, the strange program achieved its goal of materialization. Having a body was different from not having one. This way, the strange program could stay outside for a long time. Compared to the insect brain pendant, although these particles were also a kind of container, the strange program had a lot more freedom. After turning into a little turtle, the strange program said to Yang Tian, "Perhaps I know how I was created, Rumble." After the strange program said that, Yang Tian was about to ask when the cave suddenly shook. Chapter 702. 2 chapters in one. Ha! Boom! Gao Yuan leaped high into the air and slashed out with his broadsword. A small iceberg in front of him was split into two. An illusion realm ice beast hiding behind the iceberg was cut in half by this fierce slash. Countless ice cubes fell like raindrops. Gao Yuan's figure flashed and swept past the corpse of the ice beast. A black life crystal larger than a fist appeared in his hand. "You've killed 5 ice beasts today, haven't you? You're really lucky." Gao Yuan had just put the life crystal into his storage bracelet when a bald old man in a black robe appeared beside him and said with a smile. This person was Grand Duke Hong. Gao Yuan carried his broadsword on his shoulder and patted a few ice particles off his shoulder. He laughed and said, "It's getting late. We should go back. Otherwise, we'll be finished if we encounter a white tide." Grand Duke Hong looked up at the sky and nodded. At this moment, a curved white line had appeared in the sky. This white line was growing at an extremely fast speed. When this white line completely covered the sky, the most terrifying white tide in the cold zone would come. At that time, the world would be white, and the temperature would drop to the point where it could instantly freeze an illusion realm cultivator to death. The two of them flashed between the icebergs and soon disappeared. The ice beasts killed by Gao Yuan looked similar to snow leopard. They were covered in white fur and had huge bodies. An adult ice beast could be as long as 5 meters. The higher their level, the larger their bodies would be. Legend had it that the most powerful ice beast king in the cold zone was sleeping underground. If it woke up and moved, the entire cold zone would shake. Ice beasts moved extremely fast and hunted other exotic beasts in the cold zone for food. Among the exotic beasts in the cold zone, they were at the top of the food chain. There were many types and numbers of other exotic beasts in the cold zone. However, due to the harsh climate in the cold zone, it was still incomparable to the flame zone. After Gao Yuan and great-grandfather Hong left, a series of cracking noises came from the ice surface. A large group of white scorpion-like creatures gathered. In less than 5 minutes, they gnawed the ice beasts, which were over 10 meters long, into skeletons. The bones of this ice beast were like crystals, sparkling and translucent. Their blood was also translucent. This was probably the origin of the name Ice Beast. The creatures that gnawed on the corpses of the ice beasts were known as white lice. They were snow-white, just like the flies on Earth. They were everywhere. They usually stayed away from living creatures and only ate corpses. Their sense of smell was very sensitive. In the cold zone, they could smell blood from dozens of miles away. Swish, swish, swish whistling sounds could be heard. A large group of white, bat-like exotic beasts with fleshy wings swooped down from the sky. The white lice that had just finished eating the ice beasts and hadn't left yet were taken away by these exotic beasts. The white lice that had just eaten their fill became food for other exotic beasts. These creatures that ate white lice were called winged spirit. After the winged spirits passed by, the white lice that didn't have time to crawl under the ice layer were all eaten by the winged spirit. Although they couldn't see the white lice, the winged spirits still circled this area a few times. After not finding any white lice, they swelled their bellies and flew forward along the side of the ice mountain. The winged spirits couldn't fly high. They flew along the ice mountain and could borrow the power of the air current. This was also dangerous. When the winged spirits passed by an ice mountain, a series of popping sounds could be heard. Countless white tentacles reached out from the ice layer. These tentacles were extremely fast, like the tentacles of an octopus. There were also suction cups on them. A group of winged spirits that flew past were attacked by these tentacles. They flapped their wings and flew higher. However, a group of white birds flew over. After the white eagle-like birds flew past, only a small half of the winged spirits escaped from the tentacles. This kind of eagle-like bird had a wingspan of 5 meters. It had 2 sharp claws, and at the end of its wings was also a pair of sharp claws. This kind of bird was called Sky Foothill. It was the king of the skies in the frozen area. After the Sky Foothill flew away, suddenly, there was the sound of wind blowing. A frost beast that was 6 to 7 meters long jumped over like lightning and stopped on the ice layer where the white tentacles had appeared. At this time, there were still many holes on the ice layer. The frost beast used its 2 sharp front claws and began to dig at the ice layer. In a short while, its entire body was under the ice layer. Rumble, after a while, the ground began to shake. The gigantic frost beast retreated from the hole it had dug. The ice layer within dozens of meters of it began to bulge. Pung! Suddenly, there was a loud sound. The frost beast used its mouth to pull out a ball-shaped creature with a large clump of tentacles. Using both its mouth and claws, it quickly tore the creature called the Mido beast into pieces and began to feast. Before the frost beast could finish eating the Mido beasts, the white line in the sky had already covered a large part of the sky and was emitting a bright white light. At this time, it was the brightest time in the frozen area. However, the temperature was dropping at an extremely fast rate. The frost beast that was still not full looked at the sky and roared. It took the largest piece of meat and ran down the ice mountain. A few minutes later, the frost beast had entered an ice cave at the foot of the ice mountain. The ice cave was very deep and had many twists and turns. It was hundreds of meters underground. When the white tide came, they would only be able to avoid being frozen to death by hiding under the ice layer. After Shi Chun Yu and the others came to the frozen area, they had lost many people before they were able to familiarize themselves with the changes in the climate here. Gao Yuan and Grand Duke Hong ran through the ice mountain for about 20 minutes before they entered an ice cave. They were the last to return. As soon as they entered the ice cave, the 2 guards guarding the cave immediately sealed the entrance. After the white tide came, it would last for about 100 hours. After the white tide had passed, a star would appear in the sky. At this time, the humans and animals that lived in the frozen area could come out and move around. Then, after 100 hours, the white tide would come again. In truth, the white tide was equivalent to a night where they could not go out. In the flame area, there was food called strong grain, and in the frozen area, there was food called satiation fruit. The name of this food sounded a little vulgar, but it was the main food of humans and vegetarians in the frozen area. The satiation fruit first grew in naturally formed ice caves and covered the walls of the ice cave. Its roots could reach hundreds of meters deep into the ice layer. The fruit that grew was as big as a football. When it matured, its shell would turn yellow and it could be picked. The strong grain was only delicious when it was cooked, and the satiation fruit could be directly cracked open the hard and crisp shell. One could use a spoon to dig into the flesh inside, which was like a dragon fruit. It tasted sweet. While walking in the ice cave, Gao Yuan and Grand Duke Hong casually picked the satiation fruit from the ice cave wall and ate as they walked. After eating, there was a long, finger-thick seed in the satiation fruit. Gao Yuan and Grand Duke Hong inserted the seed into the ice cave wall. In less than 10 days, the two seeds would sprout and grow. The satiation fruit and the strong grain were like treasures bestowed by the gods to humans. People who were born in the frozen area and the flame area would not starve even in the harsh environment. Shi Qin Yuyu brought most of the experts of the Eternal Temple to this world. Many years ago, she came to this world under the protection of Hulua Yangli and saw a more exciting world. After returning, she could not forget that she had always wanted to lead the cultivators of that world to this world. However, the conservative Superstar Temple thought that she was a heretic sitting on the chair in the Ice Palace Hall. Shi Chen Yuyu recalled the situation in the previous world. When they first came to this world using the Wei Kong warship, they suffered a lot. First, they faced the harsh environment, then they fought with a tribe in the frozen area, and many people were killed or injured. Now, Shi Chen Yuyu had less than 3,000 people under her command. According to the ancient rules of this place, Shi Chen and Yuyu were considered as outsiders. Although they had killed a second-class tribe, they could only be considered as a third-class tribe. Every once in a while, they would have to hand in a certain amount of life crystals or lice crystals. Otherwise, they would be in danger of being exterminated. Although they did not appear in the right place, Shi Chen Yuyu's plan had delayed for a long time. But now, the situation was almost back to the trajectory of her plan. This ice palace, which was thousands of meters below the ice layer, had just been built. The previous tribe was too barbaric. It was just a simple ice cave. Each family had to dig a small cave for themselves to live in. Shi Chen Yuyu obviously did not like this situation. She used the thousands of people who had been defeated and captured to build such an exquisite ice palace. The building material of the ice palace was a kind of white rock wrapped in ice. This rock material was fine and was good for carving runes. While the entire ice palace was built to be grand and exquisite, Black Talisman Lord had also set up many defensive rune arrays. Among the people who came to this world with Shi Chen Yuyu, Yang Tian knew other than Gao Yuan, Grand Duke Hong, Black Talisman Lord, and Immeasurable Star Lord. Although Immeasurable Star Lord did not join the Eternal Temple, he had helped Shi Chen Yuyu a lot. How was your trip this time? Gao Yuan and Grand Duke Hong had just reached the gate of the Ice Palace to see Shi Chen Yuyu when Immeasurable Star Lord appeared and asked them with a smile. Not bad, Gao Yuan replied with a smile. Grand Duke Hong nodded to Immeasurable Star Lord with a smile. The three of them greeted each other and turned around to look at the gate of the Ice Palace. They had been in hiding for so long. It was time to go out. Their foundation was built here. But this world was huge. It would be a pity if they did not go out and explore. It had been a long time since they last saw Black Talisman Lord. It was said that he had left the ice region. They did not know if he had gone to the clouds region or the yen region. The three of them looked at each other and stepped into the ice palace. After a rumbling sound, a ray of blue light appeared not far away. Yang Tian frowned and carefully walked over. The door of a stone room was opened. There was a teleportation formation disk inside. Phew, seeing the teleportation formation disk, Yang Tian breathed out. He had finally passed the 6th level. This stage was simply too strange for him. Everything that happened was simply inconceivable. The first thing was that he saw a giant warship in the sky. The second thing was that beasts turned into insects. The third thing was that he saw living runes. If the talisman array of this level was man-made, then the person who had constructed the talisman array of this level was really terrifying in terms of talisman scripts. The cave was very deep. He could go even deeper. What had happened before had made Yang Tian very curious about this place. Looking at the teleportation formation, he began to hesitate. Boom! Just as Yang Tian was hesitating, the thought of going deeper took over. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. At the same time, the cave began to shake again. Yang Tian turned around and could not help but widen his eyes. Giant rocks had fallen from the front and back of the cave, sealing it. Now, there was no need for Yang Tian to hesitate. He could only leave this place through the teleportation formation. Yang Tian sighed and walked toward the teleportation formation. As he was about to leave, the strange program could not appear in front of others. The particles that made up its body spread out and attached themselves to Yang Tian's chest. After the blue light disappeared, Yang Tian had already arrived at the entrance of the pulled wood hall. At the same time, the bell rang 5 times in the pulled wood hall. That meant that Yang Tian had passed the 6th level. Everyone, you can go back the way you came. A middle-aged man from the pulled wood race appeared at the entrance of the 6th level. After the bell had rung, he said to the onlookers. While his voice was soft, it echoed in everyone's ears. Everyone had no choice but to leave. In less than 10 minutes, all the onlookers had left. Only Huey Meow Meow, Koo Man, and the middle-aged man from the pulled wood race were left. Koo Man was the supervisor of the temple. Naturally, the pulled wood race would not dare to neglect him. As for Huey Meow Meow, she had come with Yang Tian. Since Yang Tian had not left, she had the right to go up as well. The middle-aged man from the pulled wood race did not say anything. With a wave of his hand, a teleportation formation disc appeared. He then made an inviting gesture to Koo Man and Huey Meow Meow. After Black Talisman Lord left the cold zone, he had been heading east. He had suffered a lot. If he had not cultivated runes, he would have died in the mouth of a mutated beast or even been killed by other cultivators. When he reached the border of the cloud zone, Black Talisman Lord suddenly heard about the existence of the pulled wood mountain and the natural rune array. He immediately decided to go to the flame cloud zone to see the natural rune array. Anyway, his main mission this time was to scout the way and gather information about the outside world. Although Shichen Yuyu had been to this world with He Luo and Yang Li, she had not been to many places. In addition, it had been a long time, so she did not know much about this world. When Black Talisman Lord appeared on a teleportation formation in the pulled wood mountain, the bell had rung 5 times. Black Talisman Lord asked a passerby in an unfamiliar language how he could see the natural rune array. The passerby he asked merely pointed to the top of the mountain. He is so powerful at such a young age. Yes. He actually broke 6 rune arrays of the pulled wood race. Such a talent will definitely be able to enter the temple. His future is limitless. As Black Talisman Lord walked up, the people he met were all talking about breaking the rune array. Before he reached the top of the mountain, Black Talisman Lord understood that it was a child named Mu Yi who had broken all 6 talisman arrays set up by the Lamu tribe in one go. The time taken to break all 6 arrays was the shortest in history. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.